across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, a very good morning to you. This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. 3 minutes past 10 o'clock is the time. Great to have you join us. And of course, whether you are joining us on DAB Plus Radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your Connect device, it is fantastic to have at your company. Don't forget, if you miss anything from the show, you can go to my YouTube page. It's called the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Easy to spot. Hit subscribe and you never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, of course, we will not be talking about politics. You know the rules under Ofcom, and I completely agree with them. Very good. You should be out voting if you have a vote today. That's what we fought and died for. Do go out and use your vote if you have got one in various of the local elections in England, the Welsh Assembly elections, and the Scottish Parliament elections. And of course, a lot of those results won't be available until, well, I mean, some overnight, Friday morning, realistic an awful lot Friday afternoon, and some even on Saturday and Sunday. I'll be back to discuss an awful lot of those on Monday with you. We'll see what happens in those elections. But as I say, do use your vote. While we can't talk about it, you can actually do something in the elections if it's happening in your area. Well, I can, however, though, discuss the fact that nearly 1.5 million migrants received universal credit last year. Which is weird, because we keep being told these people are such a benefit to us economically. I'm not quite sure how people who need to have benefits, who are on universal credit, are a financial benefit to us. But there we are. We're certainly a financial benefit to them, are we not? We're going to talk about the two Brits who are self-isolating at home in the UK. God, even just hearing that phrase brings back trauma, doesn't it? That's after potential exposure to the hantavirus, that rat-linked hantavirus on a cruise ship. We'll talk about that. Meanwhile, Rachel Reeves has been told to cut fuel duty by 10p to offset rising oil prices due to the war in Iran. And an ISIS terrorist has had his bid to transfer to a UK jail from the US blocked. He's one of the Beatles, jihadis, remember them, to the relief of the victim's daughter, of course. This comes out as 4 ISIS brides and their 9 children have been held in a camp alongside Shamima Begum, returned to Australia today. So are there any implications there for us? I'm going to talk about all of those big stories and also talk about what is happening in the Strait of Hormuz and in Iran. Are we going to see a peace still there between the US and Iran? Who knows, based on whatever's been posted by Donald Trump on Truth Social or said in a press conference and a phone call to a journalist in the last 10 minutes. We'll keep abreast of that. Delighted to say joining me for the whole show today is Claire Pearsall, former Conservative Government Advisor. Morning to you.
Morning.
That's your former job. You are strictly neutral today, as is everybody on the airways, and quite rightly too, not to influence anybody in any elections. Our question today, I mean, we were really in two minds on this, because I know a lot of you have been interacting with JK today and your thoughts on all these civil servants who are working from home, but not really working from home. These, we talked about on the show yesterday, drive-by logins. We've got civil servants who are basically pretending they leave their computer on, pretending they're working for a couple of hours extra a day, claiming the overtime, getting an extra 2 days off a month. Well, that adds up over the year, doesn't it? And getting about 50 days holiday. That's more than me. If you're getting more holiday than me, you're on a good deal, guys. That's all I can say. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that if you want to get in touch. I'd also love to hear your thoughts on those 1.5 million migrants claiming benefits. Also, by the way, small point, just 1 in 100 failed asylum seekers is ever actually returned to some countries. So that's all going very well as well. Your thoughts on all of those stories, welcome. But I also want to ask you about a story which has been leading the airwaves for an awful lot of the media in the last few days. I'm going to say the mainstream media. I like to think, we're just the sane home of common sense media. But I want to know about this rat-linked hantavirus that we're seeing a lot of. You can see the health correspondents, I mean, virtually peeing their pants with excitement. Oh, I'm going to be on the airwaves constantly. I can talk very seriously and warn about these things. There's no doubt at all the hantavirus is a serious illness if it's passed to humans, and there isn't a cure for it. So obviously people need to be concerned, and it does appear that 3 people have died from it on this Honduras cruise ship on the way from Antarctica to Cape Verde. I want to know, are you worried about it? Are you worried about this? Given that 2 Brits are self-isolating at home in the UK, who apparently left the ship, didn't know anything about this virus, and now they've notified the authorities, and now they're self-isolating. Do you think the media is just scaremongering about it, or do you think this is a genuine concern, and are you worried that the authorities are once again getting things wrong? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Give us a call. Any of those topics, anything else you want to talk about, you know the rules, other than politics. You can give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at talkTV. Calls to charge of the national rate. Text costs altogether now one standard network rate message. Claire Pearsall, are you concerned about this hantavirus?
No, I'm really not. I think this one, I thought it was a hamster virus to begin with. When you hear it on the radio in passing, and I misheard it, and I thought, hamster virus, this is all ridiculous.
I don't need to know about this.
And am I worried about it? The 2 people that are self-isolating back in the UK apparently have no symptoms whatsoever. Yep. We keep being told that it may not be able to be passed from person to person. Then you find out that it can be passed from person to person. No one seems to know what they're doing, and it's a really bad advertisement for cruise ship holidays.
Well, there is that. I mean, you're more likely to get a tummy upset, aren't you? Anywhere that's got a buffet and you're all together all the time. So these 2 British passengers, they left the ship when it was docked at St Helena, April the 22nd, 24th, before flying to the UK via Johannesburg. I mean, they've just been spreading it everywhere, if they have. And they've now notified the authorities after they're getting home, after they saw all the reports that there'd been this rat-linked hantavirus while aboard the MV Hondius. They've got no symptoms, but I think they did the right thing. They were very responsible. Bearing in mind, of course, they've been in a couple of 3 airports, train stations, goodness knows what, or taxis. They've probably been going to work, living their normal lives. And now they're self-isolating. And again, you always think, really, at this point, 3 people have died so far. A Dutch 69-year-old man, his wife, and a German citizen. I mean, she died just a few days after him. German citizen who died on May the 2nd. Now, we've also got a British photographer, Martin Anstey. He's been airlifted off the ship to hospital in the Netherlands. We've got a Dutch doctor and a German also flown out on 2 separate flights. We've got a Brit, so in hospital needing, basically, this Martin Anstey. He's been a tour guide and things. And he was in very serious condition. Thankfully, he seems to be stable now. But there's no doubt at all that this has been passed, and there does appear to be some human transmission. They think it came from the couple who originally went to Ushuaia, which is basically the very southern point of Tierra del Fuego, the very, very bottom point of Argentina, and that they went to maybe stood around in some bird droppings, and they think the rats may have been there, and they may have inhaled it. But this is the thing. We've got people they're basically being sent from Cape Verde to Tenerife. The Spanish authorities said, right, we can take you off, we'll take you off. This is the thing I find amazing. If you are Spanish and you arrive in Tenerife, you will be forced to isolate, and they will actually provide isolation accommodation. If, however, you're not Spanish, you'll be taken to the airport, put on a charter flight home, right? Now, everyone says this is not, this can only be passed on and it's very low risk of human passing on, if you're in close contact with someone for some time. What? Such as sitting next to someone on a long flight, I would have thought. I mean, but doesn't it seem a bit strange that, you're going to isolation, you're off to the busiest place we could find.
Yes.
To then sit next to complete strangers in an area where the air is being recycled constantly. That seems like a good idea to me.
And sharing bathroom facilities with lots of other people as well. But it's almost as if the Spanish authorities are saying, you're not Spanish, you're not our problem. Off you go.
Fair enough.
But I don't know how contagious this really is, because I think that all of the health organisations probably would have had some kind of contingency plan in place for outbreaks. I know, of any.
We did that for COVID as well.
How well did that go for everyone? But it was quite interesting when you say about the birdwatching trip. They went to a landfill site at the southern point of Argentina.
None of this is my idea of a holiday.
No, me neither, which is why I'm sort of not massively concerned about it. I think it just shows that cruise ships are sort of the beacon for these kind of things spreading around, and no port wants to take them. So I think somebody needs to work out how you get these people off and how you clean things.
20 Brits involved, including passengers and crew. I mean, terrifying if you're being stuck on board and the bodies start racking up there. I mean, they don't want to make light of it, but it's just like, you're thinking, can someone come and get me, please? My thing is that watching the BBC, and it was like, it's all very, very serious. I mean, and you just think, I mean,
yeah.
I think 150 people die a year from this. This is clearly not, the plague, is it?
And that's
Can we be realistic about that? People, unfortunately, do catch diseases and die.
Is it also because we have very few other subjects to talk about at the moment that this has been at the top of the list?
That's why we're leading on it. I can't talk about the elections. But there is that. And I remember thinking earlier in the week, we're not covering that. Don't worry, we'll have plenty of time on Thursday.
Yeah, exactly.
But basically, the question I'm asking to people, are you worried about this rat-linked virus? Or do you think the media's scaremonger about the risk? Do you think they're scaremongering?
I think so. I think so, because there are plenty of other diseases that go round when people are on holiday or travelling overseas that are much more deadly than this.
The buffet is not your friend in so many ways. In so many ways. I always love the whole, don't take a roll with your fingers. Well, it's the roll I'm going to eat. I'm not putting it back.
Yeah.
But you have to use tongs. Oh, well, I'll touch the tongs that the bloke who hasn't washed his hands the last 20 years after going to the loo. Yeah, I'll absolutely touch those. Yeah. I mean, give me a break. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Guess who we're going to talk to later in the show? I bet you can't guess at all, if you're regular listeners to the show, who we're going to talk to later in the show to ask about this. Come on, Carl Hennigan. We'll just go with what Carl Hennigan says, yeah, because he's been pretty much right about everything. We'll also let's talk about the Iran war. Very good chance the Iran war is nearing the end, says Donald Trump. He's set to lift US sanctions on Iran, free up billions, and also apparently, effectively, allow uranium enrichment. Basically going back to that Obama deal that he's spent the last God knows how many years trashing. Yeah. This is worrying for me. I think the tactics of some of the aspects of this war, the failure to secure the Strait of Hormuz, is a major error. But I'm very much in favour of preemptive attacks on Iran to stop them getting a nuclear weapon. And it does seem, again, the lack of will in the West to deal with these issues before they become a crisis, is part of the problem.
Yeah, it is, because everybody sits there and waits for someone else to deal with the problem, and then nobody does, and here we are. But I'm also a little bit concerned because we kind of been here with Donald Trump previously. Yeah. It was going to be a quick war, it was going to be 2 weeks, then it was extended, then it was back to 2 weeks.
We're in our third month now.
We are in our third month, and we're going back to the agreement that Obama drew up, which apparently wasn't worth the paper it was written on, according to Donald Trump.
No, in my view, it really wasn't.
But then we're going back to it. So you kind of, I don't understand what the I think
there is one.
Yeah, indicates.
I think, again, just go by what Israel are thinking. They're clearly just head in hands. Like this, you're not dealing with the actual problem.
No,
there we are.
And we've got the fallout from it.
We absolutely do. Let's also talk about this latest government figures. I mean, again, I shouldn't even be surprised by these figures anymore. These are official figures, revealing that 1 in 6 universal credit claimants is not a British citizen. That's nearly 1.5 million migrants receiving universal credit in the last year. So 9.6 million people in total get universal credit. Way too many, by the way. And everyone keeps going on about it's an in-work benefit. Quite a lot of people who start claiming universal credit are in work. Very, very few, very, very few, a tiny percentage remain in work once they start on it. It's an out-of-work benefit to all intents and purposes these days for most people. But yet nearly 1 in 6 of that total is a migrant. Now, we are told all the time that mass migration was a boon to the economy. We can't survive without it. Some of these people will be people on low income. So we'll be told about the working poor. Again, the working poor are almost entirely couple where dad works part-time, mum doesn't work at all. That's why they're poor. And we'd all be poor if we all did those few hours in a low-income job. But I mean, these people... We've got people coming to this country who are not working, or certainly not doing a job that pays them enough if they are working or doing enough hours to actually fund themselves, and we're paying for them. How on earth is that an economic benefit to us?
Well, it isn't. So it's quite interesting when you break down the figures that there is a large proportion of these people who are EU citizens who gain settled status, which means that they feature in the migrant category, whereas previously we wouldn't have known how many of them claim the state benefit because of free movement. So I think a lot of this is down to reporting of figures, and now we're actually seeing the full extent of the pressure on our benefit system because we wouldn't have known that previously.
No, exactly. And as you point out, some of these, there'll be your Germans, your French, your Italians, but actually, Poles, whatever. Actually, most Europeans actually are in work.
Absolutely.
Who are here.
And I would like to see those figures broken down even further as to what sort of categories we're looking at, because it doesn't help this.
And the authorities must know.
Yes.
We often have this thing, it's like even down to things like, crime statistics and trying to get crime stats out of migrants from different countries. And you go, it's far too difficult. Well, you must have a record of it. I mean, every 4 months, you join the local library, they're asking for your colour of your skin, your nationality, your star sign. I mean, your shoe size, everything. Yeah. Are you telling me that when you convict someone of a crime, you don't know whether they're British or not? I mean, give me a break. But it's interesting that 200,000 were refugees or granted humanitarian protection. So the majority had come to the European settlement scheme. But again, 200,000 refugees, a lot of those are people who have been given the right to remain, but largely because we can't remove them. And this is, let's look at this. These latest stats ties in with this in the Home Office. As few as 1 in 100 failed asylum seekers from some countries are being sent home, despite the Home Office designated those countries are safe for them to go to. And we're looking at things like Afghanistan, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Iran, Somalia. You'd say Syria now as well. In basically, just Cameroon. These countries basically, you've got we've got 80,000 plus asylum seekers refused asylum last year. Only 11,500 were returned home. Afghan, 7,330 Afghans were refused asylum in the same period. Heck of a lot more came. 115 were actually returned. Yeah. Most of them are still here. And eventually a lot of these people just get given the right to stay here. And when they're given the right to stay here, do you know what they do? Go on benefits. Because amazingly, they're not all engineers and doctors.
You shock me.
I know, we're all shocked by that.
It is really tricky getting people removed. And I say this with some level of experience. That there
Having worked in the Home Office.
Yeah, and there are some countries that you don't have an agreement with. There are some countries that are just slack at taking them back, which needs to be addressed. And then there's also the lefty lawyer brigade who will stop you from sending people back. And it was an ongoing battle when we had flights going out that the last minute sort of pyjama sort of injunctions came up, and you have to deal with it.
I remember watching that live on television as each asylum seeker being returned was taken off the plane. Yeah. And you get these Egypts who are on a commercial flight going, oh no, he's in handcuffs, don't return him. He's only a gang rapist of children. But no, you make sure he stays in the country, love.
Exactly. I used to have the list of crimes that individuals had committed, and you think if only you knew what the list in front of me was, but we weren't allowed to put those
Maybe stop tattooing it on people so people aren't under any illusions. That might help, mightn't it? Yeah. Just an idea. This is the thing. We're just totally failing on this front, off the scale. I wonder one of the reasons we are failing a lot on these things is because of the abject failure of our public sector. You've worked in that field. Keir Starmer's apparently trying to heal a rift with the civil service over the Mandelson scandal, because we did see the civil service top people going, oh, you sacked one of ours, we're coming for you, which will be quite funny to watch over years, because of course there was that expectation that the civil service would be on side with this Labour government far more than they were with previous governments. But we've got more and more revelations this week. Yesterday about civil servants working from home, and we're talking about people whether they're working in a local benefits office or whether they are working in Whitehall, but basically doing things like drive-by logins. I love this. Basically, people, they work from home, but they're only allowed to work from home 3 days a week. They used to work 5 days, and basically, so no, you're going to have to come in on a couple of days. Yeah. And of course, they're always working from home on Monday and Friday. And then when they do say they're going to come in, they don't really come in. They just basically go to a nearby car park, log into the Wi-Fi, and then just go off and do their shopping or whatever. We know a lot of the time people, they're walking the dog, they're doing the laundry, and absolutely you can go and put the laundry on and then get back to work. That's fine. No one's got a problem with that. It's the same as popping by and having a chat with Sandra in accounts when you're at the work in the office. But it's very, very clear from the productivity figures that people are not getting work done from home. And if it was more brilliant than people working in the office, all of the big companies, the Googles, the big banks, would absolutely keep people at home. They don't. They're bringing everyone back in. And they're doing it for a reason, because people aren't getting any work done, and they're not collaborating, they're not learning, they're not working as teams, and they're spending all that time on this 45-minute Zoom calls, which are literally
painful.
I'll get asked, could you do a Zoom call for it? No, this is 10 minutes at best, and we can do it on the phone.
Yes,
we can do it on the phone. I don't need to be sitting logging in. Just because you want to pretend you're working, I don't need to pretend I'm working. I know what my job is.
Yeah.
But now we're told civil servants are abusing flexi time. This is extraordinary. They say you're able to clock up extra leave by declaring overtime. So you're basically you claim you've started earlier than you have, or work through your lunchtime, or work later, and you add all those hours up. So you have to only do 37.5 hours a week, but you can basically claim overtime and then take that as one combined day off, up to a maximum of 2 days a month. So some are able to claim basically 50 days paid holiday a year by either working those extra hours or just pretending they're working those extra hours. I mean, come on, they're taking the mick.
Yeah, they really are, because in no other world,
being polite,
no other world could you get away with that. I find it amazing that I've worked with civil servants. Majority of them are very good, but then there were some who were very much work to rule, and they wouldn't do more than their contracted hours. If they did, then they would log overtime.
At 4:59, they are literally packing up. Off I go.
Yeah, I don't get paid overtime. It's part of my job. If I have to work late, well, so be it.
If Ian Collins is a bit late, I won't be charging overtime. Yeah, exactly. And I have to do his show. But also, a boss in the private sector can say, look, you've been working overtime. You're doing a lot of extra hours. Going to pay you extra. You might get. If you're paid by the hour, you might get extra hours. Yeah. But it's that thing where they're only going to do that if it's productive to them.
Exactly.
Like if I need you to do those extra hours in a restaurant, in any work field. But it's like, what are you doing with that extra time?
Well, I'm not working hard enough. I deal with complaints against other government agencies where they've been outstanding for 6, 8, 9 months, and you think this is something that should have been dealt with within a month at least. Yeah. Probably quicker, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt. And they're not doing it. So clearly those departments aren't working properly, and if they're working from home, that's your issue. That's where it falls down.
I've got an issue with the management. It seems to me that people go, oh, these people are doing that. Well, why are you not on top of what people are doing? Yeah. Why, if you're a manager... I was just mentioning to JK, a friend of mine who's the director of a very, very well-known big company, and he loves his time off as much as I do. Again, it's a private company. It's up to them. But he was pushing for them to have a rule, not only that you could work from home a few days a week, which they'd done during lockdown, obviously, but also that they could work from abroad, so, working from the beach. And he was pushing for 2 weeks a year that you could work from abroad.
Brilliant.
And I'm like, well, why would you do that? He goes, so I can do it. Because people always go, if people weren't getting their work done, the managers wouldn't allow it. No, the managers are all in on it as well. I mean, I said to him, look, if you worked in the public sector, I would be furious. But private sector, it's up to you. It's up to your company. If they think you guys are worth keeping, they're keeping you happy doing that. That's up to them. It's no one's business at all what a private company is doing, as long as it's within the law. Yeah. But when it's the public sector and we're paying their wages, and we know the productivity in the public sector is at like zero. I mean, literally flatlining. Even with all the advent of technology that we've got today, and all these people working so much more efficiently at home, then it doesn't add up.
No, it doesn't. I think I might suggest that to my boss, that perhaps I could spend some more time working from the beach. See how well that goes down.
Tell me you wouldn't watch this show if I was just doing it on a video camera from, I don't know, the Maldives. You'd watch it. Yeah, I mean, we could do it from underwater, me with the sharks.
Yeah.
Come on.
I'm there.
Me, cocktail...
I'm there.
I will be wearing full clothing. I need to stress that, so I wouldn't scare people. Don't want to scare your pets.
Exactly. I think that, there with your little pina colada and a little umbrella in it.
Seriously, we're going to talk to the boss about this after the show.
I think you need to.
Just going to have a quiet word. Let me know what you think. I'd love to. Look, if you are a civil servant right now, or you're in the private sector and you're working from home. And I know a lot of you do. You listen to the show. I know you hear me take the mick out of you a lot. I'm going to be working from home this afternoon, but I'm going to be working. I've got a set task to do, and if I don't do it, I don't get paid. That's how working from home works in that context. But I'd love to hear from you. What are you doing? Justify yourself. And what do you make of those who are swinging their lead when you're getting the work done, whether it's in the office or at home? I want to hear from you. I'd love to hear from you on all the other big stories, particularly, are you worried about this rat-linked hantavirus spread on the cruise ship? Or is this a load of media scaremongering? We'll get the thoughts of Carl Hennigan up later, but I'd love to hear your thoughts right now. Do get in touch. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. 10:26 is the time. We'll take your calls up next. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show, 10:30. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer, and Claire Pissell here as well. And let's get straight to your calls. Are you worried about this hantavirus, the rat-linked virus on the Hondius cruise ship? I do worry these are going to be words, these H words we're going to be using a lot. We've got with all the talk of this in the media, but is this just media scaremongering, or are you actually worried? And there is no cure for this virus. Martin's on the phone, and he's in London. Martin, what do you make of this? Is it media scaremongering?
Morning, Julia. How are you?
Very well, sir. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Sadly, I think it is media scaremongering. I mean, yeah, if you'd watched the BBC this morning, which I often don't do, but I thought I'd have a look this morning.
For your own sanity.
You would think that the bubonic plague has arrived again. Yeah. I mean, my only concern is, this story's probably got another week or two to run, and then it will disappear. As soon as the ones that are on the boat are actually off that boat, and they're taken back to their home countries, this story will start to dissipate. But the problem is, until that happens, you're going to get non-stop rolling news of this. And the only fear I have is the longer this goes on, all of those maniacs that we had to endure during the pandemic, where we've all got PTSD from that time, and we're going to end up with all the old favourites will be back. Do you remember Susan Mickey, the woman with the pudding bowl haircut that loved the Chinese Communist Party? Yep. And all those other maniacs will be back on the news
in
every
their
day.
masks.
Oh, in their masks. Then we'll have Independent Sage, those crackpots. They'll all be back, telling us what to do. Yep. That's the only fear I have. Yeah,
well, my worry is actually our official bodies that are the ones who the biggest scaremongers. And we know, they were scaremongering over, when we had the Omicron version, telling us we should lock down, everyone was going to die, and then we didn't lock down, and people didn't, and it turned out, oh, well, surprise, we don't need to lock down for people not to die. Who knew that? And that was evidence from South Africa that we knew. But this is the thing. I've gone from being somebody who 5-6 years ago, absolutely trusted. I don't believe politicians, but I absolutely trust, medical officers and science advisors. Nope. I just have to take it with a pinch of salt. That is really bad. So now I'm thinking, what would I do? Is this a disease we should worry about? But the reality is, you're more likely to get hit by a bus on the way to work worrying about this than you are to catch this disease and die.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't even spread the same way as COVID or flu. No, exactly. And the one thing that I do find strange about this, if I was on a round-the-world cruise, bird watching, why the hell would you get off to go climbing through a landfill dump?
I know. I've been to Argentina. I've been down to Tierra del Fuego, to Ushuaia. I mean, there's plenty of beautiful places around there. I mean, it's stunning. You don't need to go to a landfill site. It's just bizarre. Completely with you on that, Martin. Thank you very much. Voice of sanity. But there you see, you've basically inoculated yourself. You had a little bit of the BBC, just enough, and that will now keep you safe. And everyone around you won't be able to spread the madness. James is in Staffordshire. James, you want to talk about working from home, don't you?
Yeah, it's one of the rare occasions that I actually disagree with you, Julia.
Right, let's go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think you're laterally thinking on this. Can you imagine the devastating effect on daytime viewing figures?
I'll live with it.
Or Hobnob, and, sales and this, that, and the other. Then the other thing, who's going to walk the person's dog? Who's going to wash the car? You're really not thinking about these things.
The economy is actually dependent now on people sitting at home, as you say, doing this all day. I can feel that tongue is firmly planted in your cheek. Do you go to the office? Do you work from home? What are you doing calling into a radio show right now? I can ask you, James.
Well, I'm a field engineer, but I'm on a sick day, to be honest.
Oh no, you haven't got that rat virus, have you?
Well, I was thinking about it. It tastes really nice, actually. but the other thing is, again, you're not thinking this through. If people are working from home, they're not going to catch the rat virus.
There you are. That's a very fair point. Mind you, if they've got those 50 days of extra holiday, they can probably, they can probably go on a long cruise and catch it. But there we are. James, lovely call. You've cheered me up no end. Thank you very much indeed. We're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to be talking to George Pascoe Watson about all things not political. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back. 10:37 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. This is Talk. And George Pascoe-Watson is joining us. He's former political editor of The Sun and joins us to talk about all the non-party political stories. Very good morning to you, George.
Hey, good morning.
Thanks so much for joining us. I do think we need to talk about the extraordinary revelation that nearly 1.5 million migrants are claiming benefits, specifically universal credit, which, although a lot of people say it's an in-work benefit, the vast majority of people on it are not working, and certainly the few that are working ain't working full time. We've been told for years, haven't we, that mass migration is bringing these wonderful benefits to us, including from the EU, and the vast majority of these people are EU citizens who have made their home in the UK and able to stay post-Brexit. But why on earth are they claiming benefits?
Morning. Well, this is one of the really big issues of our day, isn't it? And the fact is, as we keep on being told, the country is basically broke. We haven't got the money we need to pay for the goods, the services that we've all come to rely on. And one of the reasons is because we've had this swelling of the population, if I can put it that way, in recent years. And 1.6 million people out of a total of 9 million people. So, you can do the maths. It's a significant number of people who are on these benefits.
Yeah.
That comes out of taxpayers' money. That is money that could be going into the NHS. It could be going into all sorts of...
Or going back into our pockets. People always forget that bit.
And of course, it comes from somebody's pockets. It's not free money. There's no such thing as government money.
Yeah.
It's all our money. And of course, in a world where taxation is going up and the amount of money that we are paying through revenue because we're generating money is going down, we're in a very, very tight spot. So people are entitled to ask, Julia, why it is that this benefit bill is going up so much. Is it fair? And are the people who really deserve it getting what they need in this country?
And that's the thing. People say, oh, you're just cruel. Whenever I make any point about benefits or, things like free school meals for all children, like, well, why would my child be, or your child be needed to get a free school meal? We can afford to buy food for our children. And my point is always that, I want the right people, the people who need this, to be getting benefits. And I don't see why, if someone's disabled and genuinely can't work or is a carer for a very sick child, why they can't live a comfortable life. I don't want them to be scraping by. And we could be more generous to the people who really need benefits if we weren't giving them to every Tom, Dick and Harry. And I'm not entirely sure why British people living in the EU should be entitled to get any benefits either. I just don't see why we have a duty of care to other people from other countries, no matter how long they've lived in the country.
And a lot of people, I think, in the UK are feeling exactly that sentiment. And they are asking themselves the question, whose side is the government on? It's not that, nobody can fault the UK for having been incredibly generous and open-hearted and open-minded for generations. It's the right thing to do. It is very British. But at the same time, there has to be a limit and there has to be a sense of what can we afford and what can't we afford? Because in the end, everybody loses if we can't afford to make sure that the people who really deserve it in this country get what they need.
Yeah, well, you certainly can't have effectively open borders and a generous welfare system. You can't have both because the country will be bankrupt. I mean, and again, this concerns about migrants. These, of course, are legal migrants who've come here. Well, 200,000 of those are refugees, people who've actually got asylum. But failed asylum seekers are still a massive issue. We've seen the latest stats. We must be up to the 200,000 mark now of the number of people who've come just on the boats over the Channel over the last 8 years since that became an issue. But the key issue is not just people turning up here, but people ever going home, ever being sent home. And as few as 1 in 100 failed asylum seekers, people who've actually gone through the system, been assessed and found not to have a claim from some countries, are being sent home, despite the Home Office designated their country is safe for them to return to. Britain returned a total of just 11,500 rejected asylum seekers last year, and despite the fact that over 80,000 asylum seekers were refused asylum. But some countries, like Afghanistan, just 115 were returned out of more than 7,000. Just 64 Eritreans were returned out of 1,200. Just 15 Ethiopians were returned out of 876. Only 80 Iranians out of 4,374. I mean, basically, it doesn't matter whether you go through the system, doesn't matter whether you get rejected or accepted. You're never going home, realistically. No wonder we are such a magnetic pull to the rest of the world.
It's a massive advertising, marketing slogan to anybody who wants to come here illegally, that whatever happens, there's a very, very infinitesimal chance of you being returned to where you came from or any other country. And that is a massive problem. And not only that, Julia, I think it's important to focus on, this is today's number. This is today's snapshot. What will we be like at the end of this coming summer? Whether weather's better and more boats will be coming. And to be clear, I'm not identifying boats as a particular problem, other than the facts show that this is where the biggest number of non-returnals come from. And the second thing is, in a year's time, where will we be? Because we don't have currently any power in government. Whichever government you have doesn't have the power to send people back. And that's part of the problem. Not only that, the whole system is swamped by the sheer numbers. So even the officials trying to go through the numbers don't have the capacity to get people sent back to where they came from.
Well,
so
leading me nicely to the other conversation I want to have with you, which is about civil servants working from home. Now, we know that there's been an issue with Keir Starmer trying to sort of heal rifts with the civil service after the Peter Mandelson scandal and his sacking of Ollie Robbins. I mean, an awful lot of people of the top levels of the civil service and former civil servant chiefs very unhappy with him, and woe betide any government, as we've seen over the years, that makes an enemy of the civil service. But presumably, if they're all working from home, they're less likely to get up in arms about anything the government does. What do you make of these latest stats that have been coming out about the huge number of civil servants who are working from home, who are, doing what's called drive-by logins, who, even when told you just got to be in the office 2 or 3 days a week, still don't turn up for months on end? Those who are abusing flexi time, basically claiming they're working an extra hour or two in the evening, claiming an extra 2 days holiday a month in overtime, and getting, I say, even more holiday than me, 50 days holiday a year. What do you make of this? And is it time that the state, again, whichever government it is, gets on top of this?
It's a really hard thing to get on top of, and that's the problem. Of course, we need a functioning civil service which is dynamic and thriving. We want people who are in the civil service to enjoy the work that they do. Yes. It's an amazing privilege to work for the British state and to serve the public, and that is a great, great job, great careers, great pensions, and great perks. But of course, as ever, there is a significant number of people in the civil service, we know this, who are tempted to do what the law allows them to do and encourage them to work from home and not come in. And of course, why would you when you don't have to come in on a Friday? It's quite nice not to have to do so. And nobody has found a way of forcing them back in. And the ministers, particularly in a Labour government, who would tend to rely on public service workers as their voting backbone, to force them to come into work to change the terms and conditions. And also, the civil service is rightly very powerful. And what we really want is a civil service which is working in hand with ministers.
Yeah, but also a public service that is a public sector that is working in hand with the private sector. There's a symbiotic relationship. It seems to me at the moment the public service is basically hampering the private sector. We know about the productivity levels. Seems to me, when you say, no government's found a way of doing it. No, they just aren't willing to do what they need to do, which is to say, as of next month, you're all in the office, full stop, nothing to discuss, or you could consider yourself sacked. You want to go full Elon Musk on this stuff, and you follow it through. I think what people will be amazed by, it's like, my local council, went on strike. It's like, loads of council workers. No one noticed because they were doing sod all anyway. Just one final thing I want to ask you about, though, and this is a big issue for an awful lot of people, is fuel duty. Now, Rachel Reeves has been told by, indeed, it's interesting, Labour's favourite think tank, Blairite Institute for Public Policy Research, that she needs to cut fuel duty by 10 pence to offset rising oil costs. I mean, this is something that, this is pretty much a cross-party thing, isn't it? It's actually, the Treasury is raking in cash as oil prices go up and the fuel costs go up, the diesel and petrol at the pumps, and it puts up costs for everybody at home and in business and inflation as well. And she could easily cut that duty and she could make, improve things for everybody. Do you think she's going to do it?
I've no doubt whatsoever that Rachel Reeves, who is in a politically very, very difficult position, will find a way of making some dispensation for motorists, particularly for what I would call white van man, people who need their vans and cars to get around because of their work. And it is, we're about to see the cost of this Iran war go through the roof in our shops, services and all sorts of things. So she will have no doubt, have no choice but to cut fuel duty in some way.
George Pascoe Watson, you've been watching these things for many years, and I'm sure you're right on that. Former political editor of The Sun, George Pascoe Watson, appreciate you joining us. Claire Pissell, still with me in the studio. Do you think we are going to see a cut in fuel duty? Is it because politically there's just no choice about it?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's the only way that you can salvage this situation. These are people who rely upon their cars and vans to go about their business.
But it's also everything that we buy in the shops.
It is, and people forget that you've got all of the HGVs carrying everything into shops that we absolutely rely upon, and we're not a self-sustaining state.
Yeah. Supermarkets can't sustain every single hike in cost.
You need some help.
We shall see what happens. A bit of political nous wouldn't go miss from any of our political leaders. Up next, we are going to be talking about one of the. Do you remember the Beatles? There's that jihadi group who were beheading people in their jumpsuits. Well, one of them has had his bid to transfer to a UK jail blocked. I think we're all pleased to hear about that. He's in a pretty nasty place in the United States. Meanwhile, 4 Australian ISIS brides with their 9 children are returning to Australia. They've been held alongside Shamima Begum. Does this mean that she's going to be able to come back? We'll talk about that up next with Chris Phillips. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. 10:52 is the time. Let's talk about ISIS. Let's talk about ISIS brides and the Beatles. Yes, those are all very familiar terms. Those of us who've been watching closely over the last few years. You remember the ISIS Beatles? They were named the Beatles after four British men, just simply for their accents. Basically, were very much involved in some horrific kidnappings and horrific beheadings, executions of Westerners caught up in Syria and Iraq. Well, one of them, who is still alive, unfortunately, this is El Shafi El Sheikh. He's 38 years old. He was known as Jihadi Ringo, and he is basically currently being held in a pretty nasty high-security US prison, and he has just had his bid to transfer to a rather cushier, rather nicer British jail blocked, to the relief of the victim's daughter. He, of course, is one of those who beheaded aid worker father David Haynes. He's the father of Bethany back in 2014. She said it's a huge relief that he will not set foot on British soil. Well, let's talk about this with Chris Phillips. He's the former head of the National Counter-Terrorism Security Office. Good morning to you, Chris.
Good morning, Julia.
I mean, you know, we don't want these people back. If the Americans want to keep him in a high-security jail where I imagine life is pretty rough, very happy for that to happen. But what was his case for being returned to Britain?
Well, I mean, he felt that he should come back to the UK, and the US, thank goodness, said no. The key point here is what does he say about our criminal justice system and our prison system? That we are seen as a soft touch.
Yeah.
Right through your programme today, it's everything about this country now is a soft touch.
Yeah, absolutely. He was probably hoping to claim universal credit while he was here.
Yeah, exactly. And when he comes back, he feels he'll get a better life in a
But I don't even know why the courts even looked at this, because he was born in Sudan, but he grew up in London. Oh, OK, well, we'll just take him. He had his citizenship revoked in 2018. He was, you know, like Shamima Begum, you know, the ISIS bride, and we'll talk about ISIS brides in a moment, and others. You know, they basically moved, they joined ISIS, the Islamic State, threw away, you know, a lot of them actually, you know, on video burnt their British passports. Look, I'm now part of this state. Well, fine. If you don't want to be British, that's fine. But you don't get to pick and choose which week you're British and which week you're Islamic State, which week you're Sudanese, which... Tough. You didn't want to be British. You weren't born in this country. Bye-bye, not our problem.
Exactly. And there's an awful lot of people that are in that sphere. And, you know, in Syria, there are prison camps full of people that have given up supposedly their British residency, their Australian residency, and all now want to come back to a better life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, I mean, I imagine the high security prison in America is not a fun place to be. But well, probably more fun than being beheaded on camera simply for being a Westerner. And a non-Muslim, which is what he and his little gang of Beatles did. Jihadi John, the most famous of our Beatles, went to a school very near me. We did not send our child to that school. It will not surprise you to learn. Let's talk about the ISIS brides, though, because Shamima Begum, again, is another one of those. Well, she was born in Britain, born in Bethnal Green, East London. We'll probably see where her home was, out the window here across the river. But she's not been allowed to return to Britain from a camp where she's been held in Syria for the last number of years. But the Australians haven't basically been as tough as we've been. Interesting to see. And they are allowing 4 ISIS brides and their 9 children linked to those ISIS fighters, of course, to return home from Syria. They're on a flight right now. Some of them are believed to have actually committed criminals and are, according to the Home Affairs Minister, Tony Burke, likely to face a prosecution. But they're returning from that detention camp in Al Roj, where Shamima Begum has also been held, basically saying, you know, we are Australian and we've got a right to return. And the Australian government has said, we don't have any powers to stop them. Does this have any implications for Shamima Begum, or now she's had her citizenship revoked? Does that mean that she never has the right to come back?
Well, it should mean that she's not got the right to come back. But you and I both know, Julia, that as time goes by, these things wear down. You know, we kind of forget the atrocities that these people are committing. These women that are going back to Australia, you know, they went out to a situation where they were literally killing people left, right and centre But the evidence of that for them, the evidence that will be available for them will be very limited because the people that they assaulted and killed aren't going to be able to give evidence, and there's a very limited chance that these people are going to spend very much time in prison. So Australia are going to be dumped on with 4 women and who are never going to work, with all these 9 children that they've then got to look after. It's an impossible situation, and Shamima Begum is exactly the same scenario, although because her passport has been withdrawn, theoretically she shouldn't be able to come back. But you know what? It's going to happen.
Well, that's always been my view. I was always in two minds on this. You know, she went off as a schoolgirl. You know, was she groomed online? Was she? I don't. When she was found at the age of 19, she was perfectly happy to justify what ISIS had done, including seeing, you know, people being beheaded and she was absolutely fine with what they'd done. So I'm sorry, you know, I don't want her back in the country. My view was like, I don't want her to be someone else's problem because she's British born and bred. She's our problem. But I also don't want her free to roam the streets. And if we had a decent system, she said, if you've gone away, basically declared war on Britain, supported the Islamic State that were fighting, you know, British soldiers, you're an enemy of the state, commit treason, you go to prison for life and your kids are going to be taken away and going to be raised not knowing any of this. That I could live with. But I don't want her free roaming the streets. I don't want her here to preach her radical Islam. And I'm frankly pretty worried about her children and the threat they will pose in the future.
Yeah, and let's go back to stage one. We know that our criminal justice system is so weak, so sloppily weak, that she won't go to prison probably at all. If she does go, it will be for a certain period, and then she'll be let out quietly when no one's looking. And this is the bigger problem, is that we're just not strong enough to deal with the problems that we're facing in the world, and we've got to get some backbone and deal with these problems.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just going to continue to get worse.
And again, this whole idea that this person's individual human rights, the case of the Australians or Shamima Begum, or indeed this jihadi Ringo, the idea that their rights trump the safety and security and the lives of people back here in Britain is utterly bizarre. I'm going to get Claire Pearsall's thoughts on that coming up. I want to hear your thoughts as well. But Chris Phipps, always a good to talk to you, voice of reason on all of these issues. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well. 0344 499 1000. Do get in touch. Plenty more to talk about coming up next. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good morning. Welcome back to the show. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. And whether you're listening on DAB+ radio or your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, thanks for being with us. If you've missed anything from the show in the last hour, do go to my YouTube page, The Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe, never have to miss a thing. We're here all the way till 1 o'clock. Delighted to say Claire Pearsall, former Conservative government advisor, but strictly neutral today because there's an elections on, and there's no politics, no party politics on the show today. A morning once again to you.
Morning.
I do want to get your thoughts on the last topic we were just talking about, but we're also going to discuss that nearly 1.5 million migrants receiving universal credit last year, those 2 Brits who are currently self-isolating at home in the UK. And see, as soon as you hear that phrase, you're just like, not again, not again. There's often potential exposure. They don't know if they were exposed or not to the hantavirus. That's that rat-linked virus on that cruise ship. It's now currently heading from Cape Verde to Tenerife. And we're just asking you this morning whether or not, like, this is all just a bit of, frankly, let's face it, a bit of media scaremongering. Yes, it is a deadly disease. It doesn't usually pass from human to human. And I think it's like 150 people a year die of this disease in the whole world. I mean, realistically, you're more likely to get hit by a bus than to die of hantavirus on any given day by a long... hit by lightning as you're hit by a bus. That levels of chance. But, you know, is this scaremongering or should we be concerned? Are you scared? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Also, we are going to be talking about a team of 100 additional officers and extra cash to be deployed to protect London's Jewish communities, that Met Police have said. I just don't think this extra policing is going to make a difference. You cannot protect every single Jew walking down the street on their own or going to school or every business unless you have a team of police officers surrounding everybody. The solution is dealing with the people who mean them harm. Another believed to be anti-Semitic attack yesterday in North London in Hendon, where a bunch of Jewish school children had a car mount to the pavement attempting to ram them, it would appear. And police are searching for any CCTV or any dash cam footage to help them find the men or women involved in that. We'll talk about all that later in the show. As I say, Claire Pearsall is here. I'll put out the numbers for you to get in touch because there's lots to talk about today. We can't do party politics, which we do a lot of on this show, as you know. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this hantavirus, the rat-linked hantavirus spread on this cruise ship. Do you think that this is something to worry about, or do you think there is just media scaremongering about this? I mean, just basically a load of health correspondents on the BBC, Sky and ITV going, ka-ching, I'm back on the airwaves, let's big this up and we'll put our masks back on. I want to hear from you about civil servants working from home and basically swinging the lead. I also want to hear from you actually on these migrants, 1.5 million migrants. A lot of them are EU citizens who are here, but who are able to claim universal credit, claiming benefits. Why on earth have we got people in this country who are claiming benefits? And anyway, we were all told, weren't we, that all these people coming from the EU, before we started importing the whole of Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nigeria and Afghanistan, we were told that, you know, these e-migrants were going to be a benefit to our country. Well, how are they an economic benefit if they're on benefits? Sorry, I don't understand. Love to hear your thoughts on that. But also on the story we've just been talking about with Chris Phillips about those Australian ISIS brides returning to Australia today with their 9 children, and indeed jihadi. Jihadi Ringo, one of the 4 ISIS Beatles, trying to get back to Britain from his American prison. Claire Pearsall, I'd love to ask you about that right now. But before I do, let me give you the numbers. 0344 499 1000 is the number for you to get in touch. You can also text the word talk in your message to 87222. Get in touch on X at talkTV. Calls are charged at the national rate and text cost 1 standard network rate message. But Claire, you were listening to that conversation with Chris Phillips, who worked in counter-terrorism. First of all, what do you make of this El Shafi El Sheikh, known as Jihadi Ringo, basically trying to move from a high-security US prison back to Britain? I mean, he grew up here, but he wasn't born here. He renounced his own British nationality, but passport. And then we basically took that formally away from him as well. He's got no right to be here, has he?
No, he absolutely hasn't. And it's clear, and it's clear that the situation over in the US with maximum security prisons doesn't suit him. Well, tough luck.
Should have thought of that
don't
before you
be a
started beheading
terrorist.
people.
Absolutely. So
I have never been locked up in a US high security prison for terrorism offences. I have found that not being a terrorist usually helps with that.
Yeah, law-abiding citizen. Who'd have thought it? You could just
mostly. I mean, let's not exaggerate.
I'm being nice and kind. It's one of those days. No, he shouldn't come back here. Doesn't deserve to be thought of as British. He'd renounced his own nationality anyway, and then the Home Office...
He spat in our faces after being raised in London.
So the Home Office drew a line under it and said, well, we'll revoke your citizenship, so off you go, goodbye.
Again, he's literally, helped the execution of an aid worker. I mean, he was beheaded. This was David Haynes. His daughter, Bethany, has said it's a huge relief that El Sheikh will not set foot on British soil. It should have been shut down from the outset. It's actually the US Department of Justice that have shut that down. What do you make of these Australian ISIS brides? They're returning, 4 of them, 9 children returning from this camp where Shamima Begum is still being held. It's the Al Roj detention camp in North East Syria. There was a big concern when chaos reigned in Syria that basically they were all going to be let out and then they're just roaming around. They're being allowed back because they're still Australian citizens. And the Australian government has basically gone, we can't stop them coming back. We're just not going to help them get back. They have to somehow get that money themselves for the flight. But they are going to, they're going to have to do re-education for the children. And then some of the mums, the mothers may well be investigated for potential crimes. But I mean, how's that re-education going? I mean, we've got a prevent strategy here. That seems to be working really well, given that virtually every single person accused of a serious terrorist crime in this country has at some point gone through prevent and been cleared. Not a worry when they are.
Isn't it amazing, though, that they can get themselves from Damascus to Melbourne or Sydney? That's people, 9 children. That's an awful lot of airfare to collect, isn't it? So where's that money come from?
Exactly. It'll be some aid agency or something, won't it?
It will.
Some do-gooders.
It will, but...
Or they're Islamic funders.
This is going to be terrorist money going back into Australia. I find this unsettling because I don't want them to be treated as normal citizens because they're not. They've made some decisions in their life. They've gone to fight for a cause which is against humanity. And now they want to go back to Australia because their lives are a bit tricky in a detention camp. Well, and Australia has to take them back because they're citizens and clearly they have documentation. So I would suggest that the Australian government probably have some ideas. There's an awful lot of vast open space in Australia. Doesn't mean they need to stay in the city in the built-up areas.
I mean, there could still be an issue. I'm genuine. I'd be worried about their children. I'll be absolutely worried about their children. It is one of the fascinating things that virtually every major terror attack in Britain has been carried out by usually actually a second generation, sometimes first generation, but usually second generation of immigrant who has, of course, the vast majority of immigrants don't do that and their children do that. However, coming from Islamist countries, second generation children are the vast majority of those crimes are committed by people. People say they're born in Britain. Well, they may well be, but if they're being raised either raised in a family or often being allowed to mix in it, where go to a mosque or go to or seeing stuff on the internet which is radicalising them, but part of that is the fact that they feel there's some evidence they feel that they're not part of the country where they've been born. And that would be a horrible feeling, but rather than integrating and assimilating, choosing to go for the opposite and hating the country they've been born in, that is part of the issue we've got.
They're going to have been raised in a camp environment where the opinion is just generally going to be hatred of the West or wherever.
Those children are literally walking time bombs.
Yeah, they are, and I'm not sure that you can actually deprogram that as much as people think.
I think there's no evidence that you can.
No, and that's a concern. You've got 9 children going back, and we don't know the ages of these children, but they are going to have that information sort of imprinted on them.
They're not newborn babies. These women have been in camps for the last 5, 6 years.
Exactly. So that's going to be ingrained into the way they've been brought up. I mean, what can you do with them? This is the problem that most countries are going to face, and other European countries are facing.
Oh yes, and there will be British women that we will take back. There will be, no doubt at all. Let's get back to these. Should we take back people who've been on a rat-infested cruise ship? There's the question. 20 Brits, mostly passengers, some crew, on this rat-infested, rat virus infested Honduras cruise ship. They are still on the cruise ship or have been flown home. We've got 2 British passengers who were on that ship self-isolating at home. There were 150 originally. They were in Antarctica and in Ushuaia, which is the southern tip of Argentina. It looks like a Dutch couple went onto the land, and they went for some reason to a landfill site, and they think they may have basically inhaled some of this rat-linked virus, the hantavirus, when they were on this landfill site, because it's basically spread by rats. And somehow they spread it not just among themselves but among other people. We've got 3 deaths so far. We've got these 2 British passengers. They left the boat a week or 2 ago, but they're like, oh, maybe I should notify the authorities. They're self-isolating at home. And we're told, though, people have to isolate for 6 weeks. It's not just, remember, I was on a flight once when, I got pinged. Yeah. It was like, I'd been at work for 3 days, and then 4 days, and then I had to self-isolate for the next few days. My daughter's sitting in the row of front. Well, didn't have to self-isolate. So we got her to do the shopping. I mean, it was just... Do you know what I was doing? I kid you not. I was having breakfast. I was having a late breakfast with Richard Madeley in Hampstead.
Was he patient zero?
He was patient zero. And I said to him, I got a beep, and I went, I'm ever so sorry, I'm going to have to leave. Apparently it's right this moment, it's illegal for me to be out in public, so I'm going to have to go home. It's like, that's a good way of getting out of a breakfast. I did not want to get out of that breakfast. It was very enjoyable, as you do. Because everyone has breakfast with Richard Madeley on a Friday morning, don't they? That's what we all do.
I feel I'm missing out.
I love my life now. But anyway... no, so they're having to self-isolate. But the fascinating thing is this boat is being allowed by the Spanish authorities to, after leaving Cape Verde, they keep evacuating people because they're needing help. And people have died. I mean, it's a serious issue. It's not a laughing matter. And they're being taken to Tenerife. And at that point, if you're Spanish, you're going to be put into isolation. If you're not Spanish, you're going to be taken to an airport where there are lots of other people, put on a plane, sitting next to lots of other people. This virus doesn't spread easily between humans, but if you are in close contact for a long time, it can. So airport, probably not a problem. Plane, a bit more so. But, I mean, if they're going back to Brazil or something, that's quite a long flight. If they're flying just to the UK, a couple of hours. And then they're going to be told when they get back to their home to isolate.
Yeah.
Sorry, is it just me? Something we may have learned during coronavirus. The authorities haven't got a sodding clue what they're doing.
And that is really blatantly obvious, because there'll be no restrictions put on them. They'll arrive back in the United Kingdom, for example.
No symptoms.
No symptoms. And these people have been really reasonable and said, we will to fess up that we've been in the same cruise ship as these people. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to sit at home and do what? With no...
Well, they're going to work from home and clock up those extra hours and claim 50 days holiday.
No symptoms. I mean, I'd quite like that, actually. I'd quite like a couple of weeks sitting at home and nobody bothering me, but I don't really feel that I need to do that. I just wonder what...
Is it an overreaction?
Yes.
Or,
what are they hoping to achieve here?
If it's that dangerous and everything, then no one should be let off that boat that isn't completely isolated at all times, so you don't spread it anymore. But letting a load of people off to spread it and then isolating them, it seems to me to be literally the worst of both worlds.
Well, it is.
It either is dangerous, isolate everybody, or it's not, in which case... Don't
let them go along with their daily lives. Well, and there's no cure for this particular virus anyway, so I'm not sure.
I'd be damn worried if I was on the boat.
Well, so would I. It's not a great advert for cruise ship holidays.
I have to say, though, I've got to be honest with you, although I'd love to do the Antarctica thing, these things cost a fortune. I mean, these are tens of thousands of pounds, these trips. And I say, Southern Argentina is absolutely stunning. But they seem to spend an awful lot of time in the middle of the Atlantic. It doesn't look like... I can't think this is the most fun trip known to man.
Well, it's not. I mean, but all this self-isolating thing, your story about COVID made me laugh, because my son, I had to go and pick him up from school. He had caught COVID. It was all, come and collect him. So I had to bring him home. And the advice was, he must isolate. You should be nowhere near him. I'd spent an hour in the car with him next to me. What am I supposed to do when I get home? I'm supposed to lock him in his bedroom and...
I mean, lots of us would think that was a great excuse for the teenage boy, but there we are. I mean, I'd love to know from you. I mean, is this all scaremongering? I mean, you can see the health correspondents and the big channels going, it's like, lots of time for me on air. I don't know if they're paid by the minute, but they certainly look like they are.
Yeah.
They'll be putting their masks on. We're going to be talking to the eminently sensible Carl Hennigan about this and how worried should we be, if at all, in the next half hour or so. I tell you what I am worried about, though, is if we don't get a resolution to this Iran war. A very good chance that the Iran war is nearing an end, says Trump in his latest statement, but of course he could say it's never going to end in a statement on Truth Social in the next 3 minutes. We don't know. Yeah. We've had this blockade of the Strait of Hormuz by the Iranians, then we had a blockade for a few weeks by the Americans, then we had Operation Freedom, where they were going to basically get ships out. They got one or two out, and then that was stopped within hours of the Pete Hegseth and Marco Rubio saying that this is how they were going to do it. I mean, we're told there are talks, we're told by sources on all sides, the Pakistani, let's face it, military chief, who is basically mediating this, that there is some hope of a deal. But it does sound like, in terms of what Trump is asking for, that he has massively lowered his demands, and we're basically back to the deal that Obama did, which is one of the things that he rubbished and tore up.
And this is the problem when you're dealing with a regime like Iran. It isn't ever going to be as simple as you think. You don't really know who's in charge. You don't know who it is you're dealing with at any one point. And especially as we haven't even seen the leader at the moment, we're not sure what state he's in, how many pieces he's in, is he actually still alive? So you're never going to be on the winning side, I'm afraid. You need to come out with the best option, which is no enriched uranium, no nuclear programme.
They're not going to agree to do that. And even if they agree to do it, they're still going to do it.
Well, of course they are, because are we going to believe them when they say, yeah, no, we're not going to do it, don't worry, nothing to see here, and we're just going to take that on face value?
You can't negotiate with Islamist nutters who lie about everything and want to kill us all. I don't know what people find complicated about that.
No, the mothers are always going to do what they want to do, and they're going to do it in the best interest of themselves. They don't care what we think about them. They don't care what the West thinks about anything.
And they don't care about their own people, crucially. But this is the issue, isn't it? Exactly. The democratic nation states are never going to win against autocratic religious nutters, because they don't care about our people or their people, and they don't care about popularity, and they don't care about losing $500 million a day from the Strait of Hormuz being closed, and they can't get their oil out either. They don't care, because they're basically waiting for the end of times. There's 72 virgins, and the end of Israel, Jews, the West. You can't negotiate with crazy.
No, you can't. And that's the frightening aspect of it. It's just that nobody has learnt this lesson. There have been a number of attempts to deal with the Iranian regime over the years. None of them have gone particularly well.
The only thing that works is bombing them and stopping their ability to get a nuclear weapon.
Which apparently had already happened.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That's what Trump told us, that was all
They did that last year. Yeah, exactly.
So
clearly didn't.
These two things can't coexist. So I don't know quite what's going on in the State Department in the US is why haven't they wargamed this properly?
I think the State Department, from what I can gather, the State Department did, the Pentagon did, the White House, Donald Trump is... Well, the one thing about Donald Trump is he does out crazy the crazies, because no one knows what he's going to do, including him next. The trouble with that is at the end of the day, he does still care about poll ratings. He does still have to care about what a price of a tank of gas in the United States is, especially 6 months out from those midterm elections.
And they're going to cause him some problems.
Well, look, here are things that I worry about. I worry about paying my taxes, and my taxes going to stuff that I don't think we should be spending it on. And that includes 1.5 million migrants on benefits. 1 in 6 universal credit claimants in this country is not a British citizen. Now, 200,000 of those are refugees. Again, I thought these were all people engineers and doctors who were being persecuted, not people living on benefits. Vast majority of them are EU citizens who were given the right to stay here under the Brexit deal. And Brits who are living in Europe are also entitled to benefits there, because our system is less of a lot of those countries have a system we have to have paid in to get benefits. Ours is like, come on in, the water's lovely, free for all. We keep being told, and this is something when Ian Duncan-Smith set up Universal Credit, and he's a big friend of the show, as you know, is that Universal Credit was basically supposed to be an in-work benefit. It was supposed to help people stay in work and help. I don't think we should be subsidising people's wages. I think businesses should be able to pay proper wages, personally. But crucially, the vast majority of people on Universal Credit aren't working, and the few who are are in a family where basically it's the single mum's not working. Then you've got the couples where dad is working part-time in a low-wage job and mum isn't working at all. And for some bizarre reason, they can't afford all their costs. I know, I'm as surprised as you are. No one, it seems, thought the obvious option was to A, stop having more kids you can't afford, and B, start both working full-time like everyone else does. But there we are. But it is unsustainable for us to be paying this many people. And by the way, it's 9.6 million people currently receiving universal credit. That's people of working age, most of whom are not working.
Yes, but this is why it highlights the need for welfare reform as a whole. You can't just look at it with these isolated sets of figures. What you need is a proper breakdown. Somebody needs to go through all of this and look at the fine detail, the data sets that you can get. And the DWP will have those. They just don't like to give them out.
I'm always fascinated when people tell me things like universal credit on social media. That's in the vast majority of people are working, and I'll just show them the document from the DWP that says has a clear bar chart showing the percentage you are working and not working.
But you need to have that.
But oh my God, you have to work hard to find those documents.
You do. They're buried.
You really do, because no government of any political hue wants to flag up that they're handing out money to a load of people who aren't working. There'll be people who are in between jobs, and absolutely. You've worked very hard. You're looking for a new job. You're waiting for that job to start. And I've got no issue with that. That's what we have a benefit system for. And then you've got young people who are not working at all. You've got people who are frankly swinging the lead because they're going to get a low-paid job or they're going to be doing something they don't like with a boss who tells them what to do. They don't like it, and they can get away with living on benefits because, again, your income on benefits is much bigger than universal credit suggests, because you're welcomed into a world of your housing benefit, the top up here,
council
top up
tax.
there, council tax is cut, and also, as we've known for the last few weeks, all these extra little things. So, you can get in, for a quid to Madame Tussauds and get cheap gym membership and things like that. I mean, bizarre quirks.
And help with childcare. Now, if you are not working,
what do you need help with
why do you need help with childcare? That one used to really sort of grind my gears, because I was going out to work as a single parent. I worked 4 days a week. I was paying 12 grand out of gross income, 12 grand for childcare, and that was basically it was very near me, but that was the only childcare that actually had a space. And it weren't fancy schmancy. I mean, it was No, and I used a local nursery that was brilliant. That was near me, but it still cost me an awful lot of money, and it was the only income was mine. I was having to work in London, travel using.
But someone on benefits can get
absolutely. I was working myself to the bone for nothing at the end.
If you're getting free childcare while you're sitting in a job centre or sitting in the library writing letters for jobs, absolutely. The reality is,
but they're not.
Huge number of people are just not bothering to work. We've just got to get on top of this, and it's just unsustainable. I mean, I just think, it's the immorality of not working. If you can't, if you can work, it's so immoral. I know I've gone about this, but the lack of sense of duty that people have. I think it's down to even just things like I'll be sort of picking up litter in my street or putting people's bins back in like 4 days after the bins. I mean, it's just, and people are going, why are you doing that? Why is it your problem? Because it's all of our problem. Why don't you care about anything but yourself, like your own little world with your headphones on? I just find it, the people who don't move down the carriage on a train or don't give up their seat or something. Literally, you can see there's another 20 people trying to get on, and you're just standing there with 5 metres in front of you, and you're standing. I'll be on the train. I'll be going, can you move down? Because there's loads of other people also trying to get to work. And people look at me like, maybe they think I am, maybe I am. I'm an absolute nutter. But I'm just like, this total lack of caring for the people. But part of that is going out to work and paying your taxes.
It is.
And doing your bit and not being a drain on something. Support yourself, support your family, and support other people in need. That's what civil society is about.
It is, and people have forgotten that. It is a privilege to live here and be part of a civilised society. You have to play your part. It makes me laugh. There's a chap on the tube this morning. It was really busy. He was stood there in the middle, and I just sort of said, "Excuse me," and he looked at me and tutted. There was an acre of space behind him.
Brave.
Yeah, I did stare at him, and then there's a woman sort of bashed on behind me.
He'd got more than a stare from me.
Yeah, I didn't feel like having that fight.
I know a very large gentleman of my acquaintance who asked someone, please, could you move down the carriage? Excuse me, can you move down the carriage, please? Oi, you, move down the carriage or I'll get on and I'll move you myself. That seemed to focus minds. But really, we need... No, but I'm saying, we use that example. Yeah. But actually, it's just...
But it's
basic. But things like going out to work and not paying benefits, not dropping litter, not riding a bike on the pavement, terrorising old ladies and little children, just being a civilised member of society. These are all things that used to be part of the sort of the social contract. And when there isn't abject shame involved, like, if my kid was on the dole, unless, there was an absolute very specific reason for that particular moment, I would be ashamed. I would expect her to be ashamed. I would expect people to point her in the street and say, shame on you. We need to bring back a sense of duty. We need to bring back a sense of shame. Yeah. If you are able to contribute, and people think they're lefty, you're not lefty if you're not contributing. I know lots of people go, what do you do? Well, I pay my taxes for a start, from each according to their ability to each according to their need. Who said that? Karl Marx.
Yes.
But that is a really good principle for daily life. It really is. Heareth endeth. No, but I know I've gone off on one, but it does grab my gut. It really does. We need politicians to actually start saying, what are you doing?
It's the expectation, isn't it, that someone else will pick up the tab.
And we're back to parenting again. We're back to parenting again. 11:28 is the time. Give us a call. Love to hear your thoughts on all of that as well. 0344 499 1000. Whatever you want to have your say on, get in touch. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. This is Talk the Home of Common Sense. 11:31 is the time. By the way, I forgot to tell you this. Breaking news, actually, in the last half hour about trains across the whole of the southeast of England being disrupted by a radio fault, causing havoc for travellers for the rest of the day. We've got a whole load of train companies affected. 7 major lines are going to see major disruption and up to 90-minute delays. The rest of the day. Those train companies affected, listen in if you're planning travel later on. Cross Country, Gatwick Express, Great Western Railway, London Overground, Southern, South Western Railway and Thameslink. So it's going to be fairly chaotic for an awful lot of people, but don't worry, if you're working from home, you're all fine. Let's go to your calls, 0344 499 1000. Jason is in Wiltshire and wants to have his say. Jason, what do you want to talk about?
Morning, Julia. Thank you for taking the call.
Thank you for calling.
And happy V-Day to you. It's a very important day.
Well, day early.
Well, oh, yeah, sorry, it isn't. Sorry,
well, you and I...
It was the 8th today.
You and I are at least of an age where we actually know what V-Day is actually marking, which apparently most young people don't. What do you want to talk about?
Well, it's basically to talk about the Iran war and BP's record profits again. Yeah. If I sort of haven't seen profiteering, then I don't really know what it is.
Well, it's profiting. There's a difference between profiteering and profiting.
Well, I think they're actually profiteering because obviously if they've made this extra 2.4 billion this year compared to their whatever it was last year, if the price of oil's gone up 10%, 15%, surely their prices will go up 10%, 15%. It wouldn't go up 25, 30%.
It depends whether the profits are on the production or the sale of it. I mean, they're getting paid more for their product because there's a shortage of it. That's how the economy works.
Yeah, I still think they're sort of, should we say, it's profit. I still think they're profit.
You're not happy about it.
I'm not happy about it.
Can I just double check? Do you have a private pension at all?
No, I don't.
Do you have any shares at all?
Landlord.
I was going to say,
I'm a landlord, and she's obviously how our Labour Party chancellor.
No. I'm not going to talk about any. No, don't mention any political party. No, I'm just wondering because otherwise, put your investment into oil companies, guys. It might be a good idea. I'm going to have to leave that there, Jason. Thank you very much. No mention of any political party, please, today. Ray is on the line in Colchester. Ray, you want to talk about those extraordinary benefits figures that 1 in 6 people claiming universal credit is actually a non-Brit.
Well, it's not just the non-Brits. It's just we've created a system. Certainly, I was a teenager in the 80s, and basically the idea of not working makes no sense to me at all. However, we've created in the last 30 years, basically a system that penalises you if you're going to work. You're absolutely hit at every opportunity with tax. However, for those that are looking at coming out of school with little or no education, little or no opportunities, they are making completely rational decisions.
Yes.
But actually, the system is telling you that if you try, you are going to fail, and we're going to keep you poor. But if you go onto this system, the world is open to you. Yeah. And so they are making a completely rational decision based on decisions by past governments that have created the system.
I couldn't agree with you more. If you're facing nothing but a minimum wage job all your life, you haven't got many qualifications. What's the point in working if you're never going to get ahead when you can get pretty much the same money and, as you say, more benefits and a much easier life not working? And we've allowed that to happen.
Not only have we allowed that to happen, it means that in the great cities, London, still great city just about. And what we've effectively done, we've made it that the only people that can really live there comfortably are those at the top who are never affected by anything, and those ever greater masses at the bottom who everything is paid for. Those in the middle that generate the wealth and generate the money are absolutely being robbed blind at every turn. Yeah. And the government that I naively, in the past when I was younger, and boy was I naive, genuinely believed that government was behind me as a law-abiding, a citizen of this country stood the government, the police, the judiciary and everything else. Now I realise that as a law-abiding, tax-paying citizen of this country, it's the complete opposite way around.
Yeah, governments of any who are against you. I think a lot of people feel that. I really do, Ray. Thank you very much. Really great call. Appreciate that. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to be hearing from a professor of evidence-based medicine at the University of Oxford, your friend of mine, Professor Carl Hennigan, to find out, well, should we be worried about this rat-linked hantavirus, or is the media just scaremongering? That's up next. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning. Welcome back to the show. 11:39 is the time. Been asking you this morning to get in touch on 0344 499 1000 about whether you're worried about this rat-linked hantavirus spreading on the Honduras cruise ship. People are self-isolating back in Britain, people being evacuated. We've already had 3 deaths. Or is there a bit of media scaremongering? They love a good virus, don't they? Well, let's ask the man who we know knows this stuff. And that's Carl Hennigan, Professor of Evidence-Based Medicine at the University of Oxford. A very good morning to you, Carl.
Good morning, Julie.
I always know things are bad if we're talking to you. It's never good news, is it? Carl, just really simply, tell us what this virus is first, how it spread, and then whether we should be worried about it.
Well, look, this virus was first isolated in 1976 in the Hantan River in South Korea, so it's been around for quite some time. It's a number of different viruses that come from rodents and mice and are spread that way. Importantly, since about 2012, in the UK, there's been all of 11 cases and no deaths. Okay. So this is not something that we are worried about and should be worried about. But what's happening here is it's a disease that people can see themselves affecting their sense of safety. People can see themselves on a cruise ship, and in doing so, they consider that on board there may be rats and I could be affected. But let's put this into context. In the world right now, in the 2025, there's about 1.3 million deaths from TB. but completely ignored. All of the big diseases, big areas are completely ignored. Yeah. And we just focus on these small areas where the whole One World Health is mobilising, the WHO are there. They create the sense of we're going to get human-to-human spread, and therefore we need to keep you safe and keep it under control.
And we're the people to do it, and we'll need some powers. But this is it. I mean, and let's face it, a lot of the mainstream media, they don't half enjoy it as well, do they? The health correspondents, you know, standing there very, very seriously, very, very concerned about this and how worried should we be. They're creating that sense of panic. And yet, as you say, I think it's only 150 deaths worldwide from this disease every year. And that is, I mean, for each one of those families, a terrible, terrible, devastating loss. But in reality, that is a drop in the ocean in terms of deaths from viruses around the world.
So it's interesting, if you look at the UK cases, it tends to be people who have rodents as pets or are breeding them for other purposes. Right. So it's generally, you get certain parts of the world where people live very close to these species, and you can imagine in certain areas of deprivation, it's a real problem being next to rodents. But you're right, the number of cases is so low, but the media loves the sort of story. It sort of reminds me of the Diamond Princess in some ways. Yes. Helicopters hovering overboard. We don't know exactly what's going on because we talk about potential cases, and therefore everything is driven up, and within 3 to 5 days this will have subsided. Just like it's similar to what happened with the meningitis Canterbury outbreak. Real fervour in the media.
That was, everyone was losing their minds. Again, that was involving young people, and that's always going to make people more concerned. A lot of us have just had our youngsters going off to university. I messaged my daughter and said, did you have your meningitis jab? I just want to double check. Although it turns out this was a different one from the one they'd all been jabbed for anyway. But again, there was a level of hysteria about this. But again, that's because we only discovered that people died in 2020. And I'm not making light of it. People will lose their loved ones. It's terrible. And particularly if they're young people and not people in their 90s. I'm sorry, we're more concerned about a 9-year-old than a 90-year-old. But we need to get things in perspective, don't we?
Well, importantly, we'll have to get used to this because modern technology, particularly this rapid PCR testing, means we can test more people, pick up more diseases that have already been there in the background. We call it ascertainment bias. You're basically picking up what's already there. But what happens is there seems to be a loss of thinking, critical thinking, particularly in some of the places like WHO, to say, oh, it's on the rise. As opposed to saying we're starting to pick up what was already there. Yeah,
and we care about it because it's happened to Westerners.
Yeah, that is a really important issue.
White people have died. I mean, that's the reality, isn't it?
Well, the worst thing that can happen is if rich people or people that really at the positions of power think they're going to be affected. You're right. Diseases of deprivation, let's take one of the pandemics going on, cholera, never hit the headlines, never see the light of day. What do most people die of in this country? Actually, Alzheimer's and dementia. You never hear anything about that. Yeah. In fact, Julia, in the same period there's been no deaths from hantavirus. There's been about 450 deaths or serious accidents from potholes in the UK. But you don't see people hovering over with a helicopter over a pothole going, as a cyclist, you're in serious danger today. So there's a complete disconnect about what is actually killing people and the problems at hand. And
what we can do about and the reasonable amount of resources put into it. Can I ask you about some of the specifics on this day? Because we've got a British couple who apparently left the boat a couple of weeks ago, and they're saying, we haven't got any symptoms, we weren't aware, but we've now notified authorities, which I think is very much the responsible thing for them to do. And now they are self-isolating. So most of us hear that term now and just want to scream. But we've also got people being evacuated, being airlifted off. We've had 3 deaths, very sadly. But we've also got people who are going to be taken. The cruise ship is now on its way from Cape Verde, after the west coast of Africa, to Tenerife. And the Spanish authorities have said, OK, when we get off with them, basically Spanish people are going to be put into isolation and non-Spanians are going to be taken to the airport and put on charter flights. Now, if they're currently tracing the people who sat on flights or been in close contact with a British couple who are currently isolating now but have no symptoms, even weeks on, but they're going to be putting a load of people who've been on this cruise ship where there has been this infection and appears to have been some person-to-person transmission, and they're going to put them into airports and on flights. That, I mean, even if you're not kind of scaremonger, that doesn't make sense to me.
So there's very little known about this virus. So one of the things, for instance, is called the incubation period. The period by you might catch it to when you develop symptoms could be somewhere between 2 and 8 weeks. So that's why they're saying people have to isolate for up to 46 days. Wow. Now, the second thing is, they also try to establish this notion that there's human-to-human transmission, and that's what ramps up the fear and then brings into action all of these positions where people say you can dock here, you can't, we're going to fly you here, we're going to have to contact trace. I think if you look in the way this is spread over time, is the risk is not just very low, it's so low is it doesn't actually require such a panic. But actually that's the world we live in now, and we go into these actions where we say we've got to trace everybody off a flight. Now look, if human-to-human transmission is established and it can be, this number of people can be affected, there's very little we can do about it. We learned that with COVID. We could try all of these measures. They don't make a difference. The key here is this is an infection that is limited to rats. People who live very close to these people, to rats, have a problem, particularly if they have droppings and urine and so forth. But also, when somebody is symptomatic, so for instance, if I sleep with the wife and she's symptomatic, that's when the risk is really high. That is very close contact for any other infection. Irrespective of that, what we need to do again is dial down the rhetoric. But here's one fact for you. How many viruses, this is a UN report that was put together, do we think there are in animals? And they said there is about 850,000 potentially out there. So we've got an awful lot to go and panic about going forward.
I mean, we've gone through... We've gone through discussion of BSE, avian flu, monkeypox, all of the things. It's like, virtually all of these have turned out to be massive scaremongering. And although there's no doubt at all, COVID absolutely was a disease that killed people. People who say that are talking nonsense. It certainly wasn't on the scale.
All we're missing now, Julia, is a model that tells us millions are going to die. But let's see if that comes next.
Carl Hennigan, always good to talk to you. Voice of reason, voice of sanity, voice of evidence, Professor of Evidence-Based Medicine at the University of Oxford. Claire Pearsall in the studio. Reassured by that?
Yeah,
not that you were panicking anyway.
I wasn't, but I think that's a really helpful synopsis of the situation, and we just need to keep it in perspective and not panic.
Calm down and carry on. Exactly. 11:48 is the time. Up next, we are going to be talking about something we absolutely shouldn't calm down about. That is anti-Semitism in Britain. I'm going to talk to the journalist Nicola Lampart. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. This is Talk. 11:51 is the time. Let's go straight to my next guest. She is journalist Nicole Lamper, here to talk to us about, well, the latest attempts or announcements from the government and indeed the Metropolitan Police to tackle the spate of anti-Semitic attacks on the Jewish community in Britain, particularly London. We saw only what appears to be one of those yesterday, didn't we, Nicole, with Jewish school children in Hendon in North London having to run for their lives as a car sped towards them and mounted the pavement. What did you make, just first of all, of that attack?
That actually, it happened a few weeks ago, but the letter was only sent out to parents last night, and it was just another shocking incident. And it just adds up. It's kind of hard to know what to say about them. The police are investigating this particular case where some children had come out of school. At the end of day, it appeared that a car mounted the curb and then sped off. But the fact that the police are investigating means that they're taking it seriously as an anti-Semitic attack. And it adds to the fact that many Jewish children over the past 2 years have been attacked either in their schools, if they are in secular schools, and even being bullied out. And then there are also children that are at Jewish schools and their buses have been pelted, and they've been attacked at tube stations and things like that. It's all quite depressing that even children aren't safe.
I mean, it's beyond depressing. It's absolutely terrifying. But look, we all thought, I think, things like, certainly the Heaton Park attack on that synagogue in which 2 men died, we thought that would be the wake-up call. We've had the stabbing in Golders Green. I keep having people online keep going to be like, there were 3 people stabbed in the Golders Green attack. There were not. There were 2 Jewish men who were attacked. There was a Muslim man who was attacked by, it is alleged, the same suspect in Southwark, a man known to him. The Golders Green attack involved 2 Jewish men. There's no cover-up. That's what the attack involved. But as a result of that and the outcry over that, and indeed, I think for the first time, Keir Starmer feeling some serious heat from people chanting the fact that he couldn't actually walk the streets and actually meet local people freely in Golders Green because the level of anger and hostility towards him, perhaps a bit of a wake-up call to him. But we're seeing the Met Police and the government saying they are going to be taking more measures. Now, we've got a dedicated team of 100 additional officers from the Met Police to be deployed to protect London's Jewish community. We're told, it's some 20 million quid or so. But the reality is, I mean, it's what, 270, 280,000 Jews in this country, vast majority living in North London, many in Manchester as well. But the reality is, unless you've got a copper with every single Jewish man, woman and child all day, you're not going to be able to protect everybody. Because is this a bit of a drop in the ocean, or is this actually tackling the wrong end of the problem?
Well, massively, and it does remind me of the fact that we now have bollards up outside the Houses of Commons and things like that. So what we have are kind of superficial protective measures, but what we're not seeing is what needs to be done, which is sorry,
you've gone. You were there.
Sorry, my son keeps calling me.
You have to.
What we don't have is what needs to be done, which is tackling the hate preachers in the mosques, prescribing the IRGC, because we know at least some of these attacks on Jewish communities are likely to have been influenced by Iran. So this is just the superficial end. And no, I don't live in Barnet, I don't live in Golders Green, I don't feel protected, and I don't feel that more police officers, as welcome as they are, all it does is makes this community just feel more under attack at the same time.
Indeed, I've even seen stuff online where people go, well, why do they get extra help, but other people being stabbed? I mean, you think, oh my God, it's whether you're being stabbed or attacked for a particular reason, because of your ethnicity or your religion. But here's the thing. If the issue is, it's like the argument that, well, women are getting raped. Well, in that case, women should just stay at home, so they don't get raped or something like that. This argument that actually, Jews, just like everybody else of any faith and no faith, should be able to walk freely and their children go to school freely and safely, walk down the street, catch a bus, and not run a business and it not be an issue. We need to tackle the people who are the threat. Do you think there is now enough of a wake-up call among the police, the politicians, and indeed, I think among the general public, that this has been allowed to fester and go on too long and is going to have to be tackled?
There's a mini wake-up call. but I don't think it's enough at all, no. And so that's extremely concerning that already we didn't see enough of a wake-up call after Manchester. And so it feels that people have opened their eyes a bit more after Golders Green, which in some ways surprises me because I thought it would be after Manchester when people were actually killed. So now they are talking, but still, even now, the IRGC still hasn't been prescribed, and these things can be done. And we also need to talk about the Muslim Brotherhood being prescribed. And at the same time, there are elections going on, and I know we can't really talk about them, but there are
No, we absolutely can't talk about them at all. I'm going to drop in there because this is actually the law, and they're for a reason. But this is the thing. It's certainly, I find it extraordinary. IRGC and Muslim Brotherhood have not already been. I mean, Muslim Brotherhood are prescribed in most. Okay, let's use the correct one. They're banned. In most Arab countries because of the threat they pose. Are you sort of more? I mean, a week on from that date, are you more pessimistic or are you more optimistic than you were on the day?
I guess I feel a glimmer of hope, not necessarily with the politicians, but with the great British public, because I feel that they now see the problem in a way that maybe they didn't see even after Manchester. And I think that they see that this is a problem that isn't going to go away, and that the government is not doing enough. So I definitely feel that as a community, we have more sympathy towards us, and that people are, and that is in some ways forcing politicians to change their tune a little bit, which will hopefully pressure the government. For anyone in London, there is a demonstration on Sunday outside Downing Street if they want to help show their support to the Jewish community.
That's
as well.
There was going to be a counter anti-Semitism rally, but this is already organised. Standing Strong, Extinguish Anti-Semitism, and this is a rally. Basically, it's just if you want to support the Jewish community, you just want to stand up for what's right. Simple as that. Non-party political, just simply standing by our Jewish fellow citizens, and that is absolutely. It's starting at 1 o'clock in central London. You can look it up online. I'll retweet the poster on that for people right now as well. Really appreciate you joining us, journalist Nicole Lampert. Thank you very much. Tell your son to call another time. Claire Bissell, listen to that. It is really depressing, isn't it? But we are tackling the wrong end. It's like, we've got a bit of security here. No, the answer is not having people in the country who want to stab Jews.
Yeah, I think the Jewish community do not want to live locked up behind walls and gates. What they want is the actual root cause to be tackled, and that's what is not happening, or certainly not happening fast enough.
No, absolutely. I do think also things like prescribing, terror groups and the things. I mean, like, seriously, if it takes you sort of 6 months to put legislation in, I mean, Dangerous Dog Act was done quicker. Anyway, plenty more to talk about. Coming up, we're going to be talking about what's going on in the Iran war. We're going to be talking to the former head of the British Army, Lord Richard Dannett. Lots more to come, lots more of your calls as well. Get in touch on anything you want to talk about. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. 2 minutes past midday is the time. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense, and I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. And whether you're listening on DAB Plus radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, it's great to have your company. If you missed anything from the show the last couple of hours, do go to my YouTube page, The Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe. You never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, in just a couple of moments, we're going to be talking to former head of the British Army about the Iran war, following reports that Washington and Tehran are close to a deal. Also, the Chancellor Rachel Reeves being told to cut fuel duty by 10 pence to offset rising oil prices due to the conflict in the Middle East. And more than 3 in 5 Brits fear being wrongly implicated by Big Brother facial recognition technology, which is being very fast rolled out by the government and by the police. But is it actually going to keep us safe? And is it actually catching criminals? We'll be talking to the very fabulous Silky Carlo of Big Brother Watch about that. Plus, we're going to be talking about the latest on that issue over the pre-flight pint. You remember Michael O'Leary, we spoke about it on the show yesterday, the boss of Ryanair, has said airports need to start limiting people to just 2 pints in the airport, particularly those early morning flights, so they don't have to deal with quite so many drunk passengers on their flights, which is a bit weird, given that it's actually illegal for his flight crews to let drunk passengers onto the flights. But the Wetherspoons boss, Sir Tim Martin, he's got a lot of pubs in the airports. He's hit back at Ryanair and he's accused him of being a party pooper. Oh yeah, and we're going to talk about the sun lounger towel wars at holiday hotels. This after a German tourist has actually won compensation in court for the 6 a.m. towel dash. We've all been there. We'll find out why this is still happening, and why, oh why, can't hotels just have enough sun loungers for everybody? It would seem like the obvious solution to the problem, would it not? Anyway, lots more coming up on the show. Claire Pearce, let's say, is still joining me. And Claire, there's no doubt at all, a lot of the issues that governments are facing around the world, particularly, you know, politicians in this country, although on the local and West and Welsh and Scottish election, we can't talk about individual parties or their policies, but the concerns over the cost of living, that's affecting everybody.
Yes.
And that's affecting big business, small business, it's affecting poor, the rich, the old, the young, you know, rural areas, towns, there's no doubt at all. And a lot of that is down to, you know, the cost of energy and the cost of fuel. And with the oil and liquefied natural gas prices going up, and we've got, you know, shortage of fertiliser as well as a result of the Strait of Hormuz being closed for now a couple of months, we are looking at, you know, food prices, energy prices, fuel prices, everything going up. So how hopeful can we be that this is going to be resolved anytime soon?
Well, I said right from the beginning that we always need to remain hopeful, but I don't know. It depends who the next person to speak to Donald Trump is likely to be when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz being open full stop without anybody being bombed, and it depends what agreements are going to be made in respect of that. But I think that governments across the world are looking at the impact on the people in their countries, and when you look at the amount it costs to fill up a tank of petrol at the moment, it is absolutely obscene.
Yeah.
It is coming down. I did notice yesterday, thankfully, it was coming down, but even so, it's still...
But it's coming down from a high level. It's not going to go back to where it was.
So I'm feeling a little bit
as we see with
blessed.
all these things, like our energy bills going up for our homes during the Ukraine war. And okay, the Ukraine war is still going on, but you know, there are lots of people getting liquefied natural gas from elsewhere. Yet our bills are still sky high.
Well, they are, and this race for net zero is always going to be the problem when you're looking at penalising the public for the choices of a government. So I think that that needs to be looked at. But realistically, in this country, we do have incredibly high energy costs.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's due down to a lot of policies that we can't discuss right now, but we can certainly discuss what the hell is happening in the Iran war with my next guest, former head of the British Army, Richard Dannett, now Lord Dannett. A very good afternoon to you, sir.
Julia, good afternoon.
Thank you for joining us.
Again. No problem.
Now, I mean, Donald Trump has said the Iran war will be over quickly. We had the Strait of Hormuz closed by the Iranians, then we had a blockade on their blockade by the Americans, then we had Operation Freedom, and that was to get, the idea was to get all these tankers and these other cargo ships out of the Strait of Hormuz. I think 1 or 2 got out, and and then that's being stopped because apparently there are more the ceasefire talks ongoing. We've had Donald Trump's claims that they're close to a deal. We've had we don't know whether they're part of the talks or not, claiming that actually it's a load of rubbish. And there's some talk that there may be a document in existence, a 14-point plan, which basically goes back to all intents and purposes, what Obama signed with the Iranians about 10 years ago. What on earth's going on?
Well, it's a very good question and absolutely the right one to ask. I think the start point has to be that the track record of the last few weeks and months, probably the last couple of years, is you can't believe a thing that Donald Trump says. Now, I think one point and one fact that actually is quite relevant to what's going on is that on current plans, President Trump is going to go and see President Xi in China next week. And I think given the fact that so much of China's energy requires to come through the Straits of Hormuz, I think Trump wants to make sure that when he goes to Beijing, he's done some kind of deal. And I say some kind of deal advisedly because I don't think he's going to get a very good deal. Now, if this one-page 14-point document actually exists, it's going to be a pretty poor deal as far as Donald Trump is concerned. And as you said in your introduction, Julia, probably it's a return to the deal done in 2015 by President Obama, torn up by President Trump in 2018, which means we ask the question, my goodness, what was the destruction and the war of the last 2 or 3 months really all about? If actually it's moved the argument forward, not a jot. Well,
other than the fact that the Iranians have had, they had not much of a navy anyway. It turns out they just need drones anyway. But their air force pretty much destroyed, and their ability to use long-range missiles, to a lot of their weaponry. I mean, that is worthwhile in itself, is it not?
It is. I think there's 2 or 3 things there. It doesn't actually matter whether officially you've got a navy or you've got an air force. The absolute reality is that the Iranians have got a stranglehold on merchant traffic going through the Straits of Hormuz. How they do that doesn't really matter whether they have a navy or an air force. They've clearly got a military
or some bloke in a rowing boat taking explosives out.
Well, yeah. I mean, we jest, but actually the mere threat of that has quite a major effect on the merchant shipping industry, concern from insurers and all the rest of it. And it's had the effect of freezing shipping going through the Straits of Hormuz. And one has to ask the question yet again, surely the Americans, I know the American military will have known this, will have realized that right from the outset, the Iranians had their foot on the West's neck by being able to control and close the Straits of Hormuz. But your other point, 2 other points I think are implied in what you're saying. Yes, of course, the Iranians' capacity to strike Israel, to strike other Arab countries in the Gulf with ballistic missiles has been reduced. But even when the shooting war finished and the ceasefire of sorts came into existence, we know that the Iranians still had quite a stockpile of these ballistic missiles. The other point, of course, is, and this was the original objective, to prevent the Iranians developing a nuclear weapon. Now, we know at the present moment, as a result of the bombing last year, and undoubtedly further bombing that's gone on this year, that the Iranians are not close at the present moment to having the capacity to build a nuclear weapon. But the issue on the table is when that capacity might be returned to them. And I think the deal in that 14-point one-pager, as we understand it, is that the Iranians may only agree to a 5-year pause. Well,
what's the point of that?
If that's the deal he's going to get, it's a pretty expensive concession to make just to have a peaceful meeting with President Xi in Beijing next week.
Yes, I mean, and that is the big concern, isn't it? Because I think it's in the world's interest, it's in the Middle East interest, it's in the vast majority of the Iranian people's interest, and certainly in Israel's interest, that Iran does not get hold of a nuclear weapon and not have the capability to do so. And in my view, 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, 20 years is all too imminent. And we've seen by the fact that they were not only just willing to cut off shipping in the Strait of Hormuz and, as you say, use that economic power, but also the bombing of Israel and the bombing of other Arab states, pretty much, the 13 Arab states that they bombed, that they are a threat to the entire region. They are the destabilising power behind Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthi rebels that closed the Suez Canal for long enough, for goodness sake. So we know they are a problem. But the question is how you take them on, because the way that the Americans have been trying to do so, I mean, under Obama, under Biden, has been, and no one else trying to, has been about negotiating. But can you negotiate with crazy? Can you negotiate with Islamists who are looking forward to getting their 72 virgins, who want to destroy Israel, America, the West, quite happy to take the Iranian people with them and care not a jot about life or the economies or the well-being of their people or indeed anyone else? Can you negotiate with people like that when you haven't really got anything that you can hold over them if they're not afraid of dying?
Well, I think that's the major point. And of course, you go back to the deal that Obama did in 2015, which seemed like a reasonable deal at the time. It seemed like the sort of deal that might contain Iran.
If they were going to hold to it.
If they were going to hold to it. And in a sense, it became irrelevant because Trump tore it up in 2018. But I think you make a wider point, and that is that it's a fact that Iran has been exporting terrorism of one sort or another in the wider Middle East for quite some time. You mentioned Hamas in Gaza, you mentioned Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. Now these organizations have been pegged back significantly. And undoubtedly the Iranian regime, its nuclear weapon generation capacity has been put back by recent events, as indeed their capacity to build ballistic missiles has been put back. But at the end of the day, the regime in Tehran is still there. At the end of the day, when the ceasefire came, they still had quite an arsenal of missiles available, and they could, if they chose to, start striking other targets in the Middle East again.
Yeah.
One thing which, of course, has changed for all time, or certainly for the short to medium term, is relationships in that wider Gulf area have changed.
Yeah.
The Gulf Arab states had some form of accommodation with Iran. Well, I think that's largely gone because they have been shelled and attacked and damage has been done to their country. And that's going to take a certain amount of rebuilding. So at the end of the day, you have to stand back and say, goodness, what has been achieved with this 2 or 3 month war? Yeah. Probably put back the Iranians' capacity to build a nuclear weapon. And what else?
Is that alone worth it? But could they have done that with, again, another surgical strike out of the 12-day war from last year, although bearing in mind Donald Trump claimed that they had obliterated Iran's nuclear capability in that attack. I mean, the Israelis carried out pretty much every attack other than getting those sort of bunker busters into that mountainside where they believed the enriched uranium was. But then we found out afterwards, what a surprise, that they knew about it in advance and they'd removed the enriched uranium.
I think the inhibition of Iran's capacity to build a nuclear weapon was achieved last year, in the strikes last year, which means you have to ask the question, just what has been achieved with the war this year? 2 or 3 months of intense bombing undoubtedly has had an effect in Iran. It may well have had the adverse effect or the reverse effect to what Donald Trump was trying to achieve. At one stage, or at various stages, regime change has been talked about in Iran. And that will only come about if the people of Iran want to bring that about. Yeah. But you have to ask the question, has it actually hardened the attitude of people in Iran against the West and against America? I think history shows that when a population is being bombed because the other side thinks it'll change their opinion, it actually has the reverse effect.
But
and it hardens their attitude.
But the bombing in Iran was almost entirely on government and military sites, not indiscriminate bombing like Russia has done on Ukraine. I mean, there's no doubt. Yes, civilians die. They die in all wars, but it has been very targeted, has it not? And we had that awful bomb that hit a school. But again, that would not have been a deliberate targeting of a school.
I think we can probably credit the Americans with that actually that was a mistake rather than a direct attack on a school. But the fact of the matter is that when you have been bombing, along with the Israelis, a country of 90 million population and the size of Iran, people are going to get killed, and that is going to have an effect on popular opinion within Iran.
Well, I'm pretty sure, though, not as many people as the Iranian authorities killed themselves in January when there were protests on the streets.
It could well be. But I mean, but this comes back to the basic point that regime change and an attitude to governance in Iran is only going to come about at some point in the future.
Yeah.
If a majority of the people of Iran want to have a government of a different nature to the government of the Ayatollahs, which they've had for the last 40 plus years.
Well, we know that the majority do want a different regime. They just haven't got the weaponry to do it. Can I just ask you just finally, Lord Dannett, how do you think, I mean, if you've got a crystal ball, if you can get into the mind of the Ayatollahs and the mind of Donald Trump, how do you think this is going to end and how soon? If you had to put your house, I always say put your house on it, if you had to bet it.
There's my crystal ball, Julia.
He's got one.
And I have to say, I haven't the foggiest. I
like that honest answer.
And the reason I haven't got the foggiest is actually it's so hard to believe what Donald Trump says. And if you think he said something today that's vaguely sensible and credible, you can bet your bottom dollar he'll say something contradictory and probably on the face of it stupid the next day. It is very, very hard to base sensible predictions on such a volatile framework as Donald Trump's utterings. And even we've seen this in the last couple of days. Some of his top advisors were holding press conferences trying to justify the operation to free up the Straits of Hormuz, and then Donald Trump speaks against it. It's trying to chase a wild donkey. I haven't tried to do that very often, but actually extraordinary. And that's why it's very difficult to make a prediction.
Thank you very much indeed. Really good to talk to you. Thank you very much. That's Lord Dannett, former head of the British Army. Appreciate that. Claire Pearce, I'll get a quick response from you to that.
I mean, that was just brilliant, wasn't it? And I think he's right. Lord Dannett's right to point out what has actually been achieved with all of this, because at the moment I don't see any tangible benefits for anybody.
I was going to read you some extraordinary breaking news just been put in my hand. Remember the theft of Morgan McSweeney, the Prime Minister's former Chief of Staff, sorry. He had his mobile phone stolen. Remember there was obviously quite regarded as quite a lack of interest in trying to find this phone by both Downing Street and indeed the Metropolitan Police. Of course, that phone call, we had a transcript of the phone call from Morgan McSweeney released by the Met Police, and he'd given the wrong information about where it had been stolen. A man has been arrested on suspicion of trying to sell Morgan McSweeney's stolen mobile. Of course, this was back in October the 20th last year, when McSweeney reported that a government device, it was his government number, he had 3 mobile phones, you understand. He said he's been stolen, he gave chase, but the thief, he said, was riding a bicycle and got away. I say the police were given the wrong address for the crime, but McSweeney was given a crime reference number and the case was closed. Now, after the incident was disclosed in The Sun, police reopened their investigations and the theft of the device means, of course, that the bulk of McSweeney's WhatsApp messages will not be released as part of the government's disclosure of correspondence with Lord Mandelson about his appointment as the former ambassador to the United States. But yesterday, a 28-year-old man was arrested in Peckham, South London, on suspicion of selling McSweeney's phone after it was stolen. The phone has not been found. But the man was taken into police custody and later bailed. He's suspected of receiving the phone after it was stolen and then selling it on, but he's not suspected of any involvement in the original theft. The plot thickens.
It's like another...
Well, given how many people were even questioning whether the phone had been stolen...
But then the phone doesn't appear to be anywhere at the moment. So there's been a chap arrested for selling it, but the phone has not been recovered. Is that right?
Could have already left the country. Often they leave the country, though.
Exactly. So we are no further forward.
But the point is that surely that means it was tracked, and then why was... I mean, given that this happened on October the 20th, even if this theft had happened in the wrong place, the tracking device, the Downing Street was supposed to have got in touch.
Yes.
The part of the deal is, you know... Hey, a man who's got the Prime Minister's number, the Home Secretary's number, and the Chief's personal mobile number, he should be his phone. You need to find his phone and certainly, get it wiped and this. But crucially, and we were told by an awful lot of people who know an awful lot better than me about the tech levels there. There's no way in the world they wouldn't be able to remotely access this phone and to track this phone, no matter what is done by whoever has stolen it. And so they would have known where it was if they'd bothered to look, and they appeared not to have done so. Anyway, that's the breaking news. I'd love to hear your thoughts, because obviously there's an arrest being made. We won't be able to take calls on that, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on certainly what Lord Dannett had to say. always feel very reassured.
So do I.
I always say, yes, he should be in charge. It makes you feel sorry for Pete Hegseth, doesn't it? The Secretary of War in the United States dealing with Donald Trump. And are we or aren't we doing this policy this hour? Love to hear your thoughts on that. 0344 499 1000. Lots of calls also are coming in on, people, whether or not you're concerned about this rat virus. Paul, I mean, I think people say, Carl Hennigan put our minds, certainly if they were not at rest on that issue. 1.5 million migrants on benefits, and also, of course, this civil service that basically working from home, not even bothering to come in when they're told they do have to come in the office, and even those who are working from home, basically pretending to work a bit of overtime, a couple of hours a day. And what a surprise, they can then claim an extra 2 days a month as holiday. 50 days a year paid holiday. Are you kidding me? I mean, I resent anyone taking more holiday than me, and that's saying something. Love to hear your thoughts on all of that. We'll get some of your texts and tweets as well coming up. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. 12:26 is the time. Let's get some of your messages coming in about the rat-linked hantavirus that's being spread on the Honduras cruise ship. I'm asking earlier, are you worried about it, or do you think it's a load of media scaremongering? Anne says, this is how it spread with COVID, people coming in off cruise ships. What's that? Which actually is people getting planes back from China. Henry says, cruises have always had a history of being germ-infested and unhealthy. Cara says, seriously? There are more important health issues than this. I know, and that's why we got Carl Hennigan on to point that out. Not at all, says Ben. Sally says, yes, it's worrying. I don't understand why the British couple who were on board the vessel were allowed to fly back to the UK. Frank says hantavirus spreads in rodent urine, faeces and saliva. Pretty easy to avoid. Nothing like a good pandemic scare to distract us, says Jim. And Joe says, I'm worried about what sort of idiots decided to fly infected people back here. Well, we don't know they were infected. They probably weren't infected. And Helen says, fool me once. And Phil says, no matter how much the mainstream media wants to scare us, absolutely not. No. Good news, by the way, if you're travelling in trains in the southeast, Network Rail has said that services are returning to normal after mass train cancellations and delays after a radio fault hit 7 major train lines, sparking chaos for passengers. Those companies affected Cross Country, Gatwick Express, Great Western Railway, London Overground, Southern, South Western Railway and Thames Link. Basically, they're saying that things are returning to normal, but you might want to check whether your train is actually going and allow extra time for that journey, just to warn you. Let's go to your calls. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. Miranda's in Cumbria. Miranda, you want to respond to what Lord Dannett was just talking to us about the Iran conflict, don't you?
Yes, I do. I only caught the end of it because I was driving in the car. But he just didn't seem to... he didn't seem to like Donald Trump, and there does seem to be an element of everybody of Trump's derangement syndrome. And even though he couldn't even credit Donald Trump with trying to eradicate the nuclear element that was in there, and and also the fact that he said he couldn't trust Donald Trump implied that he could trust the mad mullahs.
I don't think it did imply that. And again, this is the thing, I have this online. People say, if you make any criticism of Donald Trump for changing his mind within hours about something he's just said and making ridiculous posts on social media, that's not Trump derangement syndrome. That is a legitimate criticism of really bizarre, erratic leadership. That's not Trump derangement syndrome. Is people not even crediting him for getting the hostages back from Gaza, or some things he's actually done where he's actually achieved things he said he would do. But it's not derangement to say very difficult to operate. If you're a general and you're fighting. And you've got men and women to command, and you've got a commander-in-chief who changes his mind on a whim. That's not a derangement syndrome.
Yeah, but in the same respect, he does have a lot of artillery in a certain place. They're not coming and going. Obviously, there are issues with Donald Trump, but that gentleman just did not seem to like Donald Trump, and that's what I found. And there does seem to be a lot of people who just don't like him, and they can't credit him with anything. And
but what should he be credited for? He's saying that we're going to be no better off. That Middle East is no safer, Israel's no safer, the West is going to be no safer. I mean, I support the war, but I still think I think the aims of the war are absolutely 100%. I don't think you can negotiate with Islamist lunatics. But do I think that Donald Trump has achieved what he said he would want to achieve? No, and I'm not deranged.
No, he hasn't completed everything that he wanted to do. But with regards to the gentleman, he almost dismissed the fact that the RRGC had basically slaughtered 30 to 40,000.
No, he didn't dismiss it. I pointed out that the Iranians had also killed their own people. He didn't dismiss it. It's just that's not part. That wasn't.
He didn't really engage with it, did he? That was the thing. It just seemed like he didn't like Donald Trump. And when you start off from that perspective, you don't really get I don't know.
I think he's coming from a neutral political perspective of judging it as a military man, and what are the military what is the aim, what is the method, what are the achievements? I mean, I have to say, I don't know what his views are on Donald Trump at all, but I don't think criticising Donald Trump for doing things for which he deserves as criticism for is Trump derangement syndrome.
No,
I just don't.
Yeah, I probably used the wrong phrase there. It was just he didn't have a lot of love for Donald Trump, and he did appear at times to be quite bad.
I don't think that military chiefs have a lot of time for erratic leaders, and I think for a reason, because they know that means people die.
Absolutely, but I can imagine the generals are completely aware of his erratic behaviour, and hopefully they actually consider this when they're they're engaging.
I hate to tell you that Donald Trump is the commander-in-chief of American forces. I mean, I understand your concern, but I personally, I really think that people who are big fans of Donald Trump need to be a bit more measured in terms of saying everything he does is wonderful and calling everyone out for Trump arrangement syndrome when actually it's legitimate criticism. And people who don't like Donald Trump need to also be more fair about when he does achieve things which are good. And it's like, closing that border in Mexico and Maduro and that strike, the 12-day war. They should give him more credit, getting hostages out in Gaza and that ceasefire. He doesn't get credit from them for the things he does do. They're good. I think everyone should just judge people on what they do and what they say instead of their political biases. But there we are. Great call, Miranda. Thank you. Let's go to Carl, who's in Luton. Carl, you want to talk about the civil servants, don't you?
Yes, I work for local government, and yes, we can have 2 days off a month if we make
2 days extra.
Up. Yes, but if we work extra one day, we don't get paid any extra, so we've got to get that time back, and it's good. It's good for morale. I use it.
I bet it is.
I use it as an odd afternoon to go and take my elderly parents out. An odd afternoon.
That's something. Okay, but you're saying, so you'll work an extra couple of hours at the end of a day, and then you build those hours up, and then you can take that off as holiday another time.
It's not a holiday. It's you've already worked the time.
You get the
we have a flexible.
But the point that was being made in the article we were talking about earlier, for those who are just tuning in, is a lot of people working from home aren't working that time. They're leaving their keyboard logged in. They're pretending to work, but no one's checking that they're getting any work done in that time.
Well, that's poor management.
That's my thing, because I agree with you. I think it's management, because they should look. What are you doing and what you're achieving?
Where I work, we laugh about. We call it Bank Holiday Friday.
Yeah.
Because all the offices are deserted on a Friday.
Yep.
And
every Friday.
I don't do that. I don't do that.
Yeah.
All right. I've come from an environment where I worked really hard for my money, and I had a proper job. I grafted, and my hours were set.
Yeah.
The flexible time for me is it's a bonus for me later in life, and I do it properly.
Yeah, because you're doing the actual work. I don't think anyone's got a problem if someone's doing the actual work. The problem is the people who aren't doing the actual work. Carl, I appreciate your call. Thank you very much. I don't know if he's on one of those afternoons right now. I don't know. Lunch break. Who knows? Claire Pearson, just your response to those calls.
I think the civil service needs more Carl and less flexi time abusers, to be honest. He's using it properly how it is meant to be there, and is living his best life at the same time.
But it is down to managers, isn't it? The managers need to be making sure what are people doing. What are you doing? I'm never interested in presenteeism. You can put your jacket on the back of the chair as much as you want. What are you doing?
Yes.
I've worked in so many offices where it's like, what does that person do all day? Does anyone know what they do?
And they make you...
And they're not just doing internet shopping. They're not just sort of sitting there, but they're appearing to look busy all the time. But no one knows what they're doing. Do you know what we should have? We should have more people spying on them. We should talk about this with our next guest. We're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to be talking to the director of Big Brother Watch, Silky Kale, about the government planning to unleash the biggest ever rollout of live facial recognition surveillance. Is this something that will keep us safe from crime, or something we should be worried about? Well, we'll find out what Silky thinks up next. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, welcome back to the show. 12:37 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer, and let's talk about right now, facial recognition surveillance, because we're constantly told, the police are using technology to keep us safe, to tackle crime, and yet I think we're all wondering when all that crime is going to be tackled and when we are going to be safer. But does this stuff actually work anyway, or is it actually keeping us less safe? Let's talk about this with Silky Carlo. She's director of Big Brother Watch. Very good afternoon to you, Silky.
Good afternoon, Julia.
OK, could you just, first of all, can you explain to us what exactly live facial recognition surveillance is, who's using it, and what's being rolled out?
Yeah, so the police are using live facial recognition cameras across the country, particularly in London and also in Wales. And they look like ordinary CCTV cameras, but they're actually anything but. They're lightning years away from that. Because as you walk past them, they conduct an ID check. They take a map of your face, which is biometric data, so as uniquely identifying as your fingerprint or your DNA, and they compare it against databases to see if there is a match. So used in a very public place, like a busy city centre, they can check the identities of tens of thousands or even millions of people against police databases. So this is a technology that lends itself to mass surveillance of the general public.
Yeah, because that's the thing. When we go, to passport queue now, especially if you travel to Europe, you've got your biometrics and all of that. We submit ourselves to that. It's fair enough. You need to know who I am when I leave the country and get on a plane. You need to know who I am when I arrive in a country. And I think as much as we don't want the queues, we understand the need for that security. And there are times and places when there's a reason for the authorities to know who we are. But just wandering down a shopping street or on the way to or from work, or we don't necessarily expect to have our government or our police surveilling us in the way that, let's face it, the Chinese government do. The only countries that do this sort of surveillance are actually very autocratic, dictatorial states that are very totalitarian and do actually control people's lives. So if someone says to you, look, I've not committed a crime, Silky, I'm going about my business, if this does actually stop people who are wanted by the police, I don't know, maybe my bag thief, who's still, was it 23 months on now, not actually appeared in court, even though he's been identified as a suspect by the police. If they can catch him when he's walking down Oxford Street one day, what's not to like?
Well, we do hear that sometimes. There are a couple of things to say. One is that even if you have done nothing wrong, you have something to worry about with these live facial recognition cameras. First of all, because there are misidentifications. And when it's used at scale, there are going to be many, many more misidentifications. I was in court recently bringing a challenge against the Metropolitan Police for their use of live facial recognition with a member of the public who was wrongly stopped. And he was very nearly arrested. The police were quite threatening towards him. They threatened him with arrest. They tried to get fingerprints from him. And he had actually done absolutely nothing wrong. There was also a case recently of a man who was actually taken to court. He was actually taken to cells and taken to court because he was wrongly identified with facial recognition technology. And you're also right to say that we're completely unlike other democratic countries for using this level of surveillance in this way. So I think we all have something to worry about if we see that what we think is a free and democratic country actually is becoming more like a surveillance state. But the other assumption that we need to challenge is that this does actually do anything meaningful to fight crime. Remember that live facial recognition cameras require so-called wanted criminals to walk up to the police with cameras and effectively hand themselves in. And I have watched this in action for several years now as it was being piloted and trialled. And what you tend to see is that the police will pick up low-hanging fruit, so people who are known to police who might have drug problems, etc. But it's certainly not something, if there were a very dangerous criminal out there, a fugitive, I would not want to be relying on the chance that they walk past the facial recognition camera and into the arms of the police. I'd want the police to be doing proactive policing to seek those people.
Also, do they not? I mean, they're under the rules. It's like sort of the GDPR or whatever. They have to warn. We're doing live facial recognition cameras. I passed the police on the streets in Oxford Street about a year ago, and there were 14 officers standing around. And I was saying, with all due respect, I mean, there's a beggar over there. That's still illegal. Why didn't you arrest him? Why don't you, at least one of you do something? And they were saying it's very important work. And I'm going, well, I've watched you for 20 minutes and you've all just standing around chatting. But also, big van, big signs up saying we're doing live facial recognition. I know a lot of our criminals are pretty stupid, but I'm pretty sure an awful lot of them would have gone, uh-oh, I think I'll turn around and I won't walk past that camera. But this is the thing, isn't it? We're told, all this surveillance, this is what's going to keep us safe. Nothing to fear. You've got nothing to worry about, nothing wrong. But we are one of the most surveilled states in the world, after China and I think Singapore. But the reality is we're not safer. We don't, despite all of this CCTV that exists, we don't have falling crime. We don't have a very good rate of identifying people. Even with all the Ring doorbells and the dash cams and all of that, the police seem to be ignorably incapable of actually identifying criminals committing crimes. Even when they've got all that image. And I'm just not entirely sure that relying on that technology, as you say, is the way to cut crime. You need kind of a bit of old-fashioned policing.
I completely agree. And I think that's what the public wants. I think for the police and police leaders, it sounds like it's modern, it's innovative, it costs more money, it's technology. It sounds like it must be a good thing because it's different. But actually, we're not seeing that in the results. I mean, even if you look at the correct matches that the police do have with facial recognition cameras, fewer than half of those matches actually lead to arrests. So the police are talking to people that they know, who are known to the police, but they really aren't.
You could have just gone to their houses.
Exactly. In fact, we've pressed the police on that. We've said, could there be a threshold whereby you say, we have tried to seek this person at their house or their place of work before we put them onto live facial recognition watch list, and they don't want to do that. And I think that says something about where the future of policing might be going, is that there is an idea that if you can kind of automate policing, if you can have Robocop, if you can have mass surveillance and cameras that act as a kind of catch net to try to pick people up on the chance that they walk past the cameras, that will alleviate the burden that there is on human policing. And there's an argument for that. The problem is it just actually doesn't work. It won't stop the terrible crime that we do see happening. There was another very, very bad case in Croydon recently where there was a large facial recognition deployment, cameras everywhere, a visible police presence too. And somebody was stabbed in the neck meters away from the facial recognition camera. The problems with crime that we have in this country are very deep set, and I'm afraid technology and algorithms are not going to solve them.
Absolutely. And again, we know that a tiny minority of people are committing a huge number of the crimes that are actually afflicting us. And yet the police often know who they are. They've got long records. And yet they're going to basically involve all of us in the net. We are basically all the fish being caught in the net as they try and tackle some of these people when there are other ways. And again, as we've seen with the use of big tech, again and again, it's why people, and you've been a big part of the campaigns against things like digital ID, with which Keir Starmer appears to be as obsessed as Tony Blair has been for many years, is that actually, a lot of these things, they're very fallible. There's very little evidence that they actually make people safer, and actually they are trustworthy. And once again, they can be used to basically impinge on our private lives and our right as citizens of this state to go about our lawful business without being monitored, surveilled, asked, to produce our papers, to identify ourselves. That is such a key part of our relationship to the state. It's almost like a philosophical debate to have. The state, we are not servants of the state. The state is a servant of ours. And once you turn that around with this sort of technology and digital ID and things, you enter, I think, a rather more worrying world.
Absolutely. I completely agree. This the mass rollout of live facial recognition is essentially digital IDs by the back door, because this technology identifies people in real time. And you're right, the police are supposed to work for us, not us for them. We want the police to keep the masses of innocent people in this country safe from criminals, not to treat us all like criminals. And the problem with this technology is it does treat us like a nation of suspects, that we're all presumed as potentially suspicious until we prove our innocence by giving our data and giving our IDs
Which
to
is
the state.
The exact opposite of what it should be. Silky, you've been a fantastic campaign on so many of the issues to keep us safe and stuff. So, a lot of us basically don't really understand on the face of it, think, oh, that sounds all right. And when, someone like you who's, dug into just what the implications are, people go, yeah, I don't think so. We want to live freely. Silky Carlo, Director of Big Brother Watch, thank you so much. Claire Pearsall, listening to that. You used to work at the Home Office. Where are you on that?
I'm not a fan of having it just rolled out everywhere just because I don't think it's good enough. I don't think it's up to standard. And if any government says that they're ready to launch something and it'll be a success, they're not telling you the entire truth.
Speaking from personal painful experience.
Absolutely.
There we are. 12:47 is the time. We're going to take a quick break. They're going to be talking to, I haven't spoken to him for ages, travel correspondent Salman Calder about, the battles over the airport breakfast pint and also the race to get your towel onto a sun lounger at your holiday resort. That's up next. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense for me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. 12:51 is the time. Well, if you're planning to go on your holes this summer, you might be facing a various different issue. Might you be stopped from having a pint in the airport? Might your flight be cancelled? Might you not be able to get your towel on the sun lounger quick enough to actually get any sun lounger around the pool or on the beach? Well, let's talk about all of those woes with Simon Calder, travel correspondent at The Independent, who I'm sure suffers from none of these issues. Good afternoon to you, Simon.
Hello, I'm in beautiful Deauville in northern France, thank you, where the trains seem to be working. May I just mention, Julia, your fascinating discussion about the surveillance state?
Yeah.
Well, earlier this morning, I was travelling on a 17-minute train journey, and that would be the same as London to Croydon or Newport to Cardiff or Leeds to Bradford or something. They wouldn't sell me a ticket in the booking office till I'd given them my passport. There we are.
Oh, now
that's
that's going to start being worrying again. You know, what happened during lockdown? What happened in terms of people with their ability to move around? Well, there we go. Simon, thank you for putting the window up us on that. Let's talk just really briefly first up about British summer holiday plans and could be plunged into chaos. We keep being told airlines have cancelled up to 5,000 flights in June if the Iran war continues. We spoke to Lisa Minnow, I'm sure you know well, the Sun's travel editor, saying, look, the number of flights that have been cancelled so far are actually, it's less than 1% of all the flights. A lot of them are flights that are non-profit making because so few people go on them anywhere. They're using up airport slots. Do we actually need to be worried that our flight to Spain or France or Italy or Florida on holiday is going to be cancelled?
You absolutely don't, Julia, and that was very well phrased. Holiday flights are actually going to be prioritised. If you were planning to be on the 8:30 on the 7th of August on Lufthansa from London Heathrow to Frankfurt, you might have to travel on the 7:30 or the 9:30 instead, because I dare say with 10 flights a day on that route, they might trim some of those back. Yeah. But Manchester to Skiathos, Edinburgh to Crete, all of these routes, really important. People have spent a large amount of money. They haven't just invested economically, they've invested emotionally. Yes. And we've
booked
had
the time off work. Yeah.
So this morning, TUI was the latest big company to come out and say, we're going to do everything we planned. There is no problem. And it is, I think, very upsetting for a lot of people to see these headlines in some of the less responsible media. Yes. It suggests that your half-term holiday is going to be ruined. It isn't. Neither is your summer holiday. Thank you very much.
They're the flights they make money on. They're worth paying for the aviation fuel. They've got the stockpiles. We're going to be able to go in. Although we're told, some of them would like to put surcharges on, the big airlines and holiday companies aren't, but there might be a little bit of an extra charge for baggage. But let's face it, most people probably already got their summer holiday already booked and paid for, the baggage paid for, and the contract is there. And if there's an extra cost for the airline fuel, basically the airline's going to have to suck it up.
Absolutely. And you're flying this year really because they've hedged the fuel purchases. Yeah. You're flying this year at last year's prices.
Yeah, exactly.
So make the most of it. Well, if you haven't actually booked, it's a great time to do so.
Absolutely. Let's also talk about this little bit of a spat going on between the Ryanair boss, Michael O'Leary, who loves a spat, and the boss of Wetherspoons, Sir Tim Martin. Now, Ryanair's boss is basically saying we need to limit people's drinking in the airport, particularly that early morning drinking. We walk past 6 a.m. for a flight. The airport, and you see all these lads with their pints. My husband looks at them longingly and why am I on a family or a couples break? Why am I not with the lads? But he says too many people are getting too drunk in the airport. You should limit, only serve them 2 pints, and you could limit, you can't buy alcohol unless you show your boarding pass and you can stamp it or whatever. So Tim Martin, of course, who runs a load of pubs in bars in airports, is saying absolutely not, and it's a big brother approach, and most people, of course, are not getting drunk. They might have a nice little glass of Prosecco to help the weekend on its way. Whose side are you on?
Look, I'm on both of their sides in the sense that it's a real party atmosphere. I was down at Gatwick at 7 o'clock in the morning, absolutely rammed the Wetherspoons there. But what Michael O'Leary would say is, Tim Martin, you are handing me a massive problem in the form of drunk travellers. I tell you what the real problem is, Julia. It's people who buy duty free and then surreptitiously drink it on board, which you're not allowed to do. So they've got to crack down on that. But I'm afraid I can see, and you're too young to remember, but in the olden days you could smoke on planes.
I remember.
And now it seems outrageous. I fear if there were, heaven forbid, any kind of loss of life as a result of alcohol-fueled air raid, we might be heading that direction.
I mean, I've got to be honest with you. I mean, you need, especially long haul, you need a drink just to get through and cope with the crying children nearby. And the reality is that vast majority of people have a couple of drinks just to relax, get in the holiday spirit. Not an issue at all. I think the issue is with Ryanair staff. If you are letting drunk passengers on board, you should be prosecuted by the Civil Aviation Authority because it's actually a crime. It's a crime to serve alcohol to or admit onto a plane anyone who's drunk. So they're the ones in the wrong. Just want to get to you also about this fascinating case of a German tourist who was won a payout of more than 850 quid after he was unable to secure a sun lounger every day at his holiday resort in Greece due to other guests reserving them with towels. The man said that he was with his family on a holiday in Greece 2024. tour. He said even if he woke up as early as 6 a.m. and he spent 20 minutes, he could not find a sun lounger. He sued his tour operator, basically saying the sunbeds, which weren't supposed to be reserved at all, were reserved so often they were unusable, and basically he didn't get the package that he booked, which was over $6,000 for him and his wife and their 2 kids. I love this, but what is it? Is this a uniquely British thing, or British and German thing? This putting your towel down on the sun lounger?
British, German, Scandinavian, Dutch, all of it, but it's completely unnecessary, Julia. Since this story broke, I've been working on an app where you actually reserve a specific sun lounger. We're living in the 21st century, so I've got a few names. Here we have Towel Wizard, Save Our Sunspot, Divine Reclaim, or simply Sun Up.
I want Towel Wizard. Copyright that now. Here's the thing, though. Why doesn't a hotel... I've been at a few hotels where it's like that. I'm like, I'm done. I'm going to go on the beach. Why don't they just have... They go, how many people have we got booked into the hotel? How many rooms have we got? How many sun loungers do we need? And yes, you may not get the perfect sun lounger, but if you book a hotel that is basically sitting around having the sunshine, there should be enough sun loungers for everybody at the hotel.
Oh, there certainly should. But Thomas Cook, before they went bust, the big tour operator, they actually were piloting the idea that when you book your holiday, you also book your specific sun lounger.
God, imagine being that organised. I mean, it's just madness. I mean, just go to nice holiday resorts. I say, someone called it. It's been such a pleasure. Enjoy your trip in France. He's never knowingly in the country. Travel correspondent at the Independent, Simon Coulter. Thank you very much. Clippers, have you ever done the towel wars? We've done that.
Oh, I've done it.
That's why I've got a husband